might have gone solo, but I'm never gonna go there again. It's what it is, this is who I am, this is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't have to go. I'm not the one with two stop hands, giving him the best of everything that's left of. The life inside this man, I've been born again.
Yes, he's been born again. Dave, I don't know if you have been following the news, but that was the Newsboys. Another version of the Newsboys we tend to use, but there's something very special. Your cord is in the way, it looks like right there.
No, it's good.
Okay, good. So anyway, I chose that tune for a reason.
Yeah.
Because the lead singer in that is a dear friend of mine, my family's, Michael Tate. And Michael has had some issues lately. He's come out officially as gay, and or what would they call that? Same-sex. I cannot think of the term. There's a different same-sex attraction.
Yeah.
Same-sex attracted person. That's what he is, and we have suspected it for years.
Sure,
but it never,
unless he makes it your business, it's not your business,
right? And but I mean, he's stayed in our house with us. We've traveled with him. He's been around my kids. The whole thing. Never an issue, and yet it apparently for those people who, if someone was damaged or offended, then it's an issue. So, but what bothers me about that is the way the Christian industry tends to want to jump on certain people. In fact, they not only want to deal with Michael, they want it now all of a sudden. Newsboy, you can't listen to Newsboys anymore. You can't buy their any Newsboys or music records.
God.
They didn't do that with Amy Grant. Let me just throw that out there.
Money.
Sandy Patty got ostracized because she had an affair or ended up divorcing her husband. Michael English, one of the greatest Christian singers ever to me. He was kicked totally out of the kingdom. Striper out of suspected. They didn't. One of the guys had some issues in the band, and they pulled all the music off the record.
You forgot Mike Warnke. They backed him up because they had $2 million invested in his next album. And they went after Cornerstone Magazine for the expose.
Oh, okay.
And then they had mud all over. And they this is terrible. Yeah. Mike needs help. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, Michael has come out with a full confession and asked for forgiveness and everything like this.
Yeah.
And that's what we should do now. With monitoring and making sure that somebody lives up to all of the things that they said they're going to do or should do. And, but at the same time, I don't know if I told you this or told our people this a long time ago, Bob Mumford.
Yeah.
One of the Christian Growth Ministries in the early 70s. There's a pastor, evangelist, Bob Mumford, teacher, actually. He was more of a teacher, Derek Prince and him. Anyway, but when our church started, our branch of Calvary Chapel there called Jesus Chapel. But anyway, our Sunday school used to be watching videos, and Bob Mumford and Charles Simpson and these guys were our Sunday school teachers on video.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bob Mumford had a saying talking about, we like to sing or used to like to sing the song Onward Christian Soldiers, and we're an army, we're the army of God. But unlike any other army, when the wounded come home, normally you take them, you fix them up. Yeah. When the wounded soldiers, when the Christian comes home, what do? We finish them off.
Yeah.
It's so true. I've never forgotten that, because it really is true. We will finish them off. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Same-sex attraction is not a sin.
It's the acting on it.
Exactly.
Right.
You can't help how you're tempted. So no temptation in itself should cause anybody to feel guilt or shame.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. In fact, Martin Luther was so famous for saying, I'm not responsible for the birds that fly around my head. I'm responsible for the ones that make nests in my hair.
Yes.
And so
Kenneth Hagin quoted that all the time. It was really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the thing. He needs to be surrounded with people who have his best interests at heart.
And accountability.
Right. I mean, within those of us who profess to want to be disciples of the scriptures of Jesus Christ in that. And that's what it is. And but on a very secular level, we need to respect the fact that people have liberty even when they choose to live differently than you or I believe. Right. Yeah. But man, I hate to just snub. We have a guest here.
No, I know. I was just going to get to that. I just felt.
But know how we can get into it.
No. I was getting ready to cut that. But if that's allowed on the air. But anyway, no, you're exactly right. But I was ready. We want to move on. So this is an acquaintance, friend, person you've known for some time and told me about him for a long time. So let you introduce our guest.
I have. And Eddie, just to poke the bear, when I first decided to put everything on the line and all my credibility in leadership in the Republican Party and decide to support another alternative, particularly for our veterans with PTSD from multiple tours. And I saw from veterans, good men and women, but mostly men, and for me, what this was doing to get them off the addiction that the VA put them on of benzodiazepines. So I'm out there, and a lot of these people were from a political persuasion very different from me, some outright socialists and Marxists. But one of the friendliest people I got to know was the son of the former mayor of Jinx, Chance Tinker. Welcome to the show, Chance.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Yeah. So, and the more I've gotten to know Chance, I find out so much we have in common, the things that are important to us, the things we advocate for. And Chance is about people. And the insights he has from his own journey, his own struggles. I actually remember him as a little boy when I was managing a chain of gift stores, and our warehouse was right next to a little restaurant in downtown Jinx on Main Street that his parents ran. And he literally grew up in there. And we knew some of that. Jack's bookstore in the front. We find out how much we both knew certain people.
Yeah.
And a good friend of ours,
Fred Gage.
Yeah, Fred Gage. No, well, that wouldn't be
Did you know Fred Gage?
No, that was a different one.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
But it's, how they say you can't be mayor of Tulsa unless you live within certain blocks of 31st and Lewis, right?
Right. Seems that way.
Seems in Jinx, you have to live in a certain neighborhood to be mayor, because you go out to his mom's back door, his parents' house, and you're seeing all the dirty laundry from Kelly Dunkerley's house.
And what are you saying there?
Well, evidently you got to live in that neighborhood to be mayor of Jinx.
Oh, okay. Now I got you. All right.
It is funny.
Yeah, but was Kelly mayor of Jinx?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's my expert on Jinx government.
Okay. I wasn't aware of the fact that he was mayor of Jinx.
I think your dad started out as a city councilor, right? And then later, I don't know, was he city manager of Jinx, but it was Collinsville largely, right?
Yeah. So assistant city manager to Randy Ewing during a time that was much needed for the city. So he stepped up, and then city of Collinsville was needing a city manager. So he transferred over there and came back to the city of Jinx, more or less being a pseudo city manager with Randy. And then towards the end, it was assistant city manager to Sand Springs at the end of his life.
Yeah.
Let me say this. Let me do this because in the essence of time and everything, I'm moving forward a little bit.
Yeah.
But okay, so you're the son of a former mayor, and the reason we have brought you in to speak on homelessness and the issues surrounding all of that. And from what I understand from David, you either were or are you currently homeless?
I jump around. I do consulting in the marijuana industry, and so I mean, being in that kind of realm, it's
where do you live though?
Right now, Norman, north and south of Oklahoma City. Just depends on which day of the week it is and who needs me where. So,
Right.
The beautiful thing about Chance, he's a friendly man, makes a lot of friends.
Right.
And he benefits from a lot of friendships. You also have a lot of drama.
Right. But let me get to this. But again, do you live in hotels and apartments or?
More or less stay with the people that I'm working for. I can find. I mean, I don't even mind sleeping on the streets. I've slept on the streets in Bricktown, Oklahoma City, waiting between clients
in the winter.
Yeah,
it was rough.
Sub-zero temps.
So in a sense, you're a homeless person. You're not a homeless person. You live among the homeless periodically.
Yep.
Is that a better description?
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that, because I mean, I have to say, we had about an hour before we got on the air talking, and you do not present yourself or carry yourself as, a homeless person, a junkie,
no,
you name it, whatever. So this gives a little bit more clarity, because from the way I had to throw you under the bus, from the way Dave described you, I was waiting for you to have a beard this long and hair, in rags, limping in here or something like that.
Yeah, but listen, I've had him call me.
You see me on my worst and better days. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
There are times I thought for sure he wasn't going to live the rest of the day.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Chance has been through, and keep in mind, all the things we think of a homelessness, we think of the drug issues, we think of the mental health challenges.
Yeah.
You have experience, very intimate experience with both. Now, I'm going to respect your privacy. You divulge what you want to.
Yeah.
But that path your life's taking you on, as a result, you've seen people at their worst. You've seen exploitations of both the mentally ill and people with drug issues.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, I think you're going to, before we end this episode, talk to us about a National Geographic documentary that you helped produce and you served as a lot of background information for, where they're going to discuss the corruption and how insurance companies are being just taken by people claiming to be detox centers.
Well, and see, the question at hand from the bottom, even the victim, is whether the insurance company is playing a part or whether they're just turning a blind eye to this. I mean, they're seeing numbers rise. They're seeing what these considered fake rehabs are turning into numbers. And I mean, those in turn are, analytics to say what drugs are being used. So in saying that, we have an overinflated number by substance users that are exploiting that for money. So I don't believe the fentanyl reports that we see out of like the HIDTA, the high intensity drug trafficking reports from the DEA. Honestly, those numbers are not figuratively speaking in the regards of the fraud that's taking place. If you removed the fraud, I suspect those numbers to be lower. But at the same time, you have the cartels that are looking at those numbers because they're publicly projected and saying, hey, let's turn more product because that's what's occurring. And that's why you're seeing the cartels push up the doses, is because these public reports are coming out and these are being overinflated numbers.
Yeah. And that's their market. I mean, it's a prime target market for
as easy it is for me to find those HIDTA reports. The cartels have people that are looking into these reports as well. So
the government's doing the research for them.
Yep.
They're not dumb when it comes to business sense. The cartels are pretty shrewd, pretty smart.
And that's why we're seeing the large fentanyl numbers, and like reports are showing cocaine on the uprise. They're seeing that being brought in at the large numbers now.
Okay.
I want to bring something up because I have to go here early. It just hit me, your hat, because this is an issue Dave and I kind of disagree.
Yeah, he actually did ad hoc. Well, what do you got? A whole bunch of sheriffs. We're in Oklahoma City area for a conference. Oklahoma Association of Sheriffs, I think is.
Yeah.
And they see you and they strike up, and you end up having this bunch of sheriffs standing around him outside a convenience store. And he's just giving them just straight up. And you're good friends with the guy from Woodward. What is he?
Mark Woodward.
Yeah.
Public Informations Officer for OBN.
You guys talk all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to say the hat, if, in case you can't make it out, says make weed illegal again. Yep. And so, why don't you give us your take? Because that's my point of view as well.
I look at it.
I don't think for the same motivation.
Oh, you don't think so?
Yeah,
Okay.
today I look at these dispensaries as 3.2 alcohol beer. I mean, honestly, the growers are pushing more for a dollar crop instead of a passionate crop. So you're seeing less defined what you term cannabis and more is what you find street weed or, like poorly grown.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in the same regards, it's like if you go into a Walmart and you buy a bad tomato, a person should go to jail for that.
Right.
Same regards to pot. If you're growing something that doesn't classify as pot 10 years ago, you're probably doing something criminal.
Oh, no. And I don't disagree with that. What my point is this. I'm not against medicinal use of marijuana.
Yeah.
I'm totally for it because I know too many people who it has helped, even, cancer patients and things like that. There are people where it does help. There's even some psychedelic drugs that are beneficial to people, psilocybin and things that they can be used. But it's that illegal, that street sales of it and the legality of where you got a head shop or call a dispensary on every other corner and so forth. That's where I have my issue. And we've talked about this. I felt you should have to get it like you have to get if I need heart medicine, if I need certain, behind the counter drugs.
See, so I agree to disagree because in the formation 2018, 788, I would agree with that. But now that we've seen so many flourish, so many pop up, it's almost like a whack-a-mole of who's the fraudster in this whole thing. And from someone of the past, I'm starting to see that the old drug dealer was actually more legitimate than what's coming up into these stores.
Yeah.
And so sadly enough, me and a group of people outside of just me cultivating, we've started testing product because I had a lung issue that became abundant with the use of cannabis here in Oklahoma. And what we were finding was heavy metals, pesticides, insecticides, and fungicides that on testing were getting passed by the state, but yet in the stores, whenever we pulled it as a client, just buying the product, it's testing for these. Those are cadmium, zinc. I mean, these will cause cancer. And not only that, the majority of you, here's another fact for you, the majority of your medical patients here in Oklahoma are sooner care patients. So whenever you start taking into consideration these health problems, the state is paying for their own problems in the way of a healthcare authority that all these patients are now showing up in the hospital for issues that they could have stopped in the very get-go with just testing adequately.
Right.
Chance, you and I have talked about this. I've said that the state has been sabotaging medical marijuana from the start.
Yeah.
They went with this Wild West thing. Said, there's not going to be testing, buyer beware and that. And then they were shocked that nobody died.
Yeah.
But you could see the corruption, the money changers, everything, the legislature included.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the problem here. Eddie, I don't think they have the patient's best interests at heart.
No, but see, I saw this coming back in 2014, on Pat Campbell's show when we were talking and we were against it because it's the sin, the original sin of man, corruption, that you give somebody an inch, they're going to push it to their benefit and profit. That root of all evil, the love of money, always creeps into whatever, whether it's alcohol.
That's a fair point.
Alcohol, drugs, sex, you name it.
Yeah.
You give them a crack, boom, they open it wider, a little wider, a little wider. And so this is why I was against it. Not that I hate people with PTSD, it's because I could see this coming down. The same with gambling in Oklahoma, in the casinos and so forth. You start with bingo, then we go legalize this, and then next, boom, you got these giant billion-dollar casinos everywhere. And so, and that's my view on marijuana. I believe it helps. I believe it works. I just believe there's a better way. I'm not saying you necessarily have to go to a doctor, but they should at least make the clinics have to go through some more rigor. Yeah. In insurance, for all clarity or honesty here, I have actually written insurance on several. In fact, I have one now, a marijuana dispensary, and and they're generally good people.
Yeah,
but again, I just wish. It's something we talked about earlier, cosmetic. What do you call them?
The oversight, the club meds, or no, med spas. Sorry.
Med spas. Thank you. So, because again, I insure one of those, and they have to have an actual doctor or a PA with them before they'll be insured. Mm-hmm. They have to have one. You would like to see them on site, but they have to be on call. Well, I know they may call them when it's paycheck time or something like that.
What happens whenever that oversight doctor's a pediatrician that lives 3 hours away?
Yeah.
I mean, the majority of his patients are, my baby won't stop crying. And now you've got a med spa clinic 3 hours away that just had someone with a rash from cryogenic freezing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not necessarily that we're opposed to the issue. It's the issues with that. Legal.
But I think Chance and I share in our many hours of phone calls, right? I mean, is a certain libertarian belief that may not be functionally workable, but it's still an ideal of, it's my body. And, it's all the government stuff. The governments create black markets. By regulating the open market.
That's true. That I agree with that.
And I pushed for this. And one of my biggest arguments to the right was I want to end the cash cow for the cartels. And marijuana was that cash cow. Unfortunately, they've co-opted it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. You got Chinese mafias, the triad.
And that's a failure of state government oversight, period.
Well, this is my thing with fentanyl, and this is my argument with anybody that says it's just the Mexican cartels. The Chinese mafia, the triads, are the precursor of where all this is being made. They're just using the Hispanics, the Latino community as mules. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and now those mules are more than just mules, because these are mules that prepare their own food that are carrying it across. The grass is greener on the other side. Let's feed them too. And honestly, if you go into Mexico and look at the fentanyl use, it's very, very rare in abundancy. So even their own nation, it's one of those commodities for the next neighbor over. It's like what we saw with Syria and Captagon. Bashir al-Assad had taken Captagon manufacturers, and he started holding his neighbors ransom and saying, "Hey, pay me $40 million. I'll stop the Captagon rush." Well, Captagon, I mean, if you don't know anything about it, it's just as bad as what Hitler used back in World War II for his soldiers.
It was kind of a meth, wasn't it?
It's meth mixed with, it's amphetamine mixed with respiratory drugs. So it's more of a steroid mixed with a speed.
Yeah.
It'll cause euphoria, invincibility, grandiose thoughts. But I mean, in a soldier, this is basically the best thing. If you're bleeding out, your soldier's bleeding out, they're not going to realize that they're bleeding out, and they're just going to keep on struggling, fighting until they die. Is essentially what it comes
see, Chance knows about as much as most guys with a chemistry major. Mm-hmm. He's just really sharp on this stuff. I thought your brain would be wasted away by now, Chance, but
yeah.
I mean, you were a salesman for a dispensary. Oh, I'm not a dispensary processor, right?
Yeah.
And he come by and he's showing me all of his dabs and he's hooking up his pipes and everything. And you had unlimited free samples available. It was the worst thing for you.
An addict's dream. But
Okay. Can we talk just a little bit about, because you have had you got hit hard and truly a victim of some mental health challenges. And then you got exploited by our hospitals. There's a lot of that going on. And it's up to you to explain how much you want, to about that. But I remember at a low point, you called me about 5-6 years ago. And I said, hey, let's check in. You get an assessment. It's not going to cost you anything. And I helped you. We went in there for you to just get a assessment of what you're dealing with. I thought it was depression, but I'm not a professional.
Yeah.
And I said to you before, as I was leaving, I said, hey, let me call your parents. Let them know. Do you want to talk about what happened as a result of that?
I mean, for the understanding of mental health, that's what was gained out of that. I mean, just an understanding an alternative perspective of it, but in the form of cannabis addiction, my mother, my whole family, unfortunately, has been just societally brainwashed by what cannabis has been seen to do by fake historical.
Okay, let me drill down on that, because your dad has a community responsibility. And I remember, your mom's like, look, if we've got a drug user in our own home, that's going to be very undermining of this leadership role and responsibility. So I at least, said something, but your dad called me. He says, Dave, if what you're saying is true, we've got to be there for Chance. And he said, when he's out, have him give us a call.
Yeah.
And you went back to your parents. I remember working out the details with your mom. And I said, get him his card so he's legal. And you hang on to the medicine. And she's like, oh, well, that solves all of it. And then while you're there, you start dealing with a very difficult time for your family.
Yeah.
Your father was diagnosed with advanced cancer, right?
Yeah.
And your mom was just overwhelmed trying to take care of him. And then she slips in the ice and breaks her ankle.
Yeah.
And I saw a change, a real change. And, I'm not saying everything's perfect. You guys had relationship things to work out and stuff like that. But I just thought it was really neat. It made me feel good as an advocate, because you've come with me to NAMI meetings. You've seen how much passion, and you're like, a lot of people like you who are generally on the left politically, like, there's a conservative, he really cares.
Yeah.
Who knew? So I'm sorry. You can comment on what you want to and ignore what you don't.
Well, I think a lot of the understanding was during his treatment, unfortunately, we saw painkillers almost become oblivious to his chemo pain. I mean, he was going through a mid-psychosis in a lot of ways, and that was about the time that we were asking him to step down from his role in politics. His doctors were not for the sanctity of his job, but more the sanctity of his health care. Not that, his parking lot was 2 blocks away. So, I mean, it'd take him an hour and a half to get into the office. And by then he'd be worn out. So, I mean, the functionability of somebody after that, it was just like, okay. But we ended up getting his medical card, and he more or less, he never got into the smoking aspect of it. And I mean, I respect that, especially for someone that's never used cannabis, that's looking for an alternative. The aroma, the smell of it, it's very societally, I think the aroma is known, and there's a stigma back behind the aroma itself, especially the skunky, not the more floral, but just in the past, people have smelled that and go, oh, okay, turn the other
That
way.
bohemian smell.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got him tinctures, which is liquid THC, and he did find relaxation in that, especially in the way that it would allow him to sleep without the noticeability of pain. Like the pain would be, sent from his hands into his brain, but he would be passed out on that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't wake him
See,
up.
that's the part, and thank you for sharing that, because here's a guy who literally told his son, you can't come home anymore as long as you're smoking pot.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden now he's the licensed medical marijuana patient.
Yep.
It's just unique. I just thought it was an interesting thing. And I've shared that story with a lot of professionals and law enforcement. I didn't use your name, but it was like, this kid might be taking less marijuana than his folks.
Well, and I'll tell you this, out of him going down his little journey of seeing, what his product was, I started showing him the different flowers that it came from. He didn't even realize that it was from a flower. All through his lifetime, he had seen the 5 to 7 leaf and thought that it was just dried up leaves that you were smoking.
Yeah, he believed all the reefer madness propaganda.
I mean, he going back to him in high school, he was a theatrical art student. He got to set up for the Beatles. At that time, he was not a person that smoked or consumed pot. So, I mean, the most he had done is hung around people that smelt of it. So that's why he put 2 and 2 together. This is not something that you want to be around.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, my dad was very stigmatized in the way that during his career, if he was at something that someone stepped outside and said that they were going to smoke a cigarette, if he walked out and smelt it, his job title, it was, oh God, the headlines. I mean, at that time, it really, and it still is. I mean, it goes back.
Jinx is not that progressive of a town, is it?
No. Well, you do have, there are some politics.
A progressive underground.
I would say, someone asked me the other day, how many law enforcement and politicians do you think are in the cannabis industry here in Oklahoma? And I said, that's be a good question, but I do know politics that are involved in cannabis that I just steer away from because I'm already politically driven. So to work in a cannabis facility or around somebody that's politically driven and money driven.
Yeah. You've got the disease, addiction to politics.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk almost daily about whatever's happening. You've been in need of public resources for mental health. And so you care about having that public safety net.
Yeah.
And we've watched some crazy stuff happen this fall or this spring. You want to talk about the Department of Mental Health?
Well, I mean, it's everybody's seen the Department of Mental Health has way overshot their budget. I mean, in the way of their own payroll. I mean, and they had even said 3 months before the end of the fiscal year that they were financially good standing and everything of that nature. And then whenever it came down to the 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the end of the fiscal year, they're freaking out going, we don't have enough money. And that's about the time that Allie Friesen was driven out, the commissioner.
She had an additional scandal.
Yeah.
Ends up she's claiming to be licensed, and if she had a license, it expired.
Yeah, it actually expired 2023. So
Okay.
she's been doing this for quite a while. And I mean, the email signatures sent to Fox 25 there in Oklahoma City show her Allie Friesen LPC, and the L stands for licensed. If you break that down,
Eddie, what happens if you claim to be a licensed insurance salesman and you're not?
Well, I will probably go to jail.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah.
And they're not going to prosecute her. Now, Paxton, it wasn't Paxton. It was actually Gentner Drummond weighed in as our attorney general. And he says the Loft report confirms the legislature made the right decision in using their power to remove her. It took the House and the Senate both.
Yeah.
That's a resolution. And
for the sake of those out there who don't know who she is, let everybody know.
The commissioner of mental health.
Right.
She's our top person. But the problems preceded her. Kara Slayton Hodges, and before that, Terry White, who Terry and I've mixed it up some too. I mean, I've been called in for 2.5-hour meetings with their top staff. Carrie was there, and then Carrie took over. But that's where the problems were happening, is they were using next year's budget to pay last year's bills.
Mm-hmm.
They were kiting bills, and then they go ahead.
Talk about their 2 new buildings that they pre-planned for that were overshot on budget by what I think it was like $150 million. They didn't pre-plan on the construction costs.
Well, I have to say, now that's a legislative thing there. That's where the legislature authorizes a capital improvement. And I've talked to really John Haste, our state senator here in Broken Arrow, is probably the person most responsible for getting us. And you've been to TCBH.
Yeah.
I have loved ones and friends have gone through there. It's a hellhole. And it needed to be replaced.
What is TCBH?
Tulsa Center for Behavioral Health. Thank you, Eddie.
You guys.
It's it was an old, way outdated doctor's hospital.
Brooks Harvard Medical Plaza.
Yeah. And then they, so now Tulsa's actually in construction of a new facility down by the Civic Center, actually. Between that and the OSU Medical Center, the OSU Hospital. And, so we're doing better than the big one was Griffin. Now, remember, 25 years ago, we closed Veneta. That was the monster facility out in the country that at one point had 2,600 beds. And now, last time I spoke actually at the headquarters there with top staff, they confirmed to me, yes, your count is right, Dave. We have 349 state beds. We used to have several thousand. Has the state got any smaller? No.
Well, outside of this, so the Biden administration conducted or started an investigation into the state of Oklahoma on the behalf of Oklahoma City Police and the state of Oklahoma's mental health. And it wasn't the investigation itself that was corrupt, and actually the Trump administration's canceled that investigation or wholeheartedly just called it off. But as I've learned, Oklahoma City Metro Police Department has changed their policies on how to even handle mentally ill, because just for instance, if you have a family member that's made suicidal statements, formerly, not even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could call the police, do a third-party statement, have that person held on a 5150 is what other states, put that charge under. Mm-hmm. Well, and today, now because of the Biden administration's investigation, you cannot conduct that. So basically, families are having to play mental hunger games with people on making these statements, on getting the police out there to hear these statements for their own ears. Because the police are in this violation area of, we can't conduct mental health. We've been told by our superiors, and now Tulsa is not this way. Tulsa has COPES, Tulsa has Grand River Mental Health, and now you have communities like I think Sand Springs is getting Creoaks, and now they've partnered with doing their own mental health.
Yeah, it's a hodgepodge.
Oklahoma City, they're utilizing their fire department for mental health. And
St. Anthony's has stepped up in a way none of the Tulsa hospitals have.
Really?
Yeah, Terry White was telling me that. She says, we need a hospital, a big hospital in Tulsa to partner with us the way St. Anthony's has. Of course, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing most people don't realize is you and I have been involved with this in interventions, loved ones, because your insights have been very helpful, is that although they can't go through the police to do this and get it as a police action, anybody can go down to the court clerk's office. And like at Tulsa, they put this office within probate, and it's the mental health court clerk.
Yeah.
And you can do a petition for a judge to order an evaluation. And I've helped several people. I've been very involved in that. I believe you still have the ability with Rick Warren's office there. Isn't he the court clerk over there in Oklahoma County? So I just want to say that so people in Oklahoma City don't feel so hopeless.
Yeah.
But they got to make a trip down to the courthouse to do it. Yeah. Used to be you could just call the cop, because the cop truly had way more insight than some judge sitting at her bench does.
Now, going back to the main issue at the Department of Mental Health. So June 8th was a federal deadline that we were required by a court mandate to have a set precaution or set guidelines on what to do with a mentally ill patient in custody. Because right now, a lot of counties are technically throwing people in jail.
Good point.
And
I'm so glad you're saying this.
Waiting for a mental bed to open up. We don't have guidelines. There's no procedure on, does the county get this person? Do they go over to a private facility? So basically we have people that could be waiting 6 months for a mental health bed or forever.
And is there not a lawsuit that we're having to settle for $100 million?
That was the June 8th required deadline, which we failed to meet because the new commissioner, Greg Slanovic.
He's the interim director.
Yeah.
Until the legislature can approve him. So, yeah, and Eddie, it's this. And Vic Regalado and I were talking about it in his office one day. He said it is the most heinous abuse of civil rights that you can get arrested if a judge says, okay, you're not stable. I'm not even going to give you your habeas corpus rights your day before the judge. I'm ordering you into treatment. That has to be done in a state facility, not a county jail. And Vic has offered to use part of the county jail as a de facto state, and the state doesn't want to do it with him. But what ends up happening is you don't begin to get well or get treatment to get well until they have a bed open in Bonita. Some of those people have been waiting a year. Yeah. And so you're sitting in jail without even habeas corpus rights, a chance to say, Judge, this is wrong. They've arrested me indefinitely.
Well, a few years ago, I had to go to Wagner County from a Tulsa facility because they didn't have a mental bed open. Wagner County, I guess the hospital is split where they have a mental health wing on top of the hospital.
Grand River?
No, this was private.
Okay, state. This was the Wagner hospital.
Yeah, this is the public, but yeah, it's the state facility. There is no treatment plan. There is no classes on cognitive behavioral therapy. There's no, they'll talk to you about general medications, which I'm sure that they got a sales pitch on how those medicines worked, on why they're even talking to you about it. But as far as what you're going to do, you'll be here for 3.5 weeks as a patient. The whole time you're walking the halls, counting how many tiles there are. Yeah. That's what our treatment plan is for mental health currently. And now I believe, and I know for a fact, we have therapists that go in, once a week to talk to these patients. But what is once a week to a person that's counting tiles? These people are critical,
And that's usually a support group.
Yeah.
So you don't even get an individual diagnostic thing. So I appreciate you sharing this, because I want to respect your privacy in that, but you have so much to share. You went out to California for a couple of years. I think at one point you thought you were going to be doing a grow. You ended up, I think you found housing there as part of a job deal.
Yeah.
And so for the last couple of years, we're talking, that's why I say, my homeless buddy out in California and stuff. But I'm glad you're back. I really am. Yeah.
California, I was just observing their like how they do it. They've got assemblies instead of Senate and representative on how their establishment is. But in saying what they take care of, they've sold out on their mental health by far. It's private facilities everywhere. Now, in saying that, do they have more observance, like oversight in that? I would say in regards to the rural areas, yes. In the way of LA, San Francisco, San Mateo County, those are highly populated. You're never going to have oversight over those areas.
Especially the homeless issues so concentrated.
Oh, yeah. Mental health, homeless, just drug oversight. I plead my heart out to harm reduction specialists that say, I want to get a number of what the growing rate is of addiction. Right. You're never going to find
something. But here you are, a homeless guy. You stayed the heck out of there.
Oh, yeah. Now, at the same time, I was curious, and I've always been curious on what is termed the bad side of town, and just seeing why it is labeled that by many people. And the funny thing is, I think the bad side of town type of issue is stereotypically things that are Hollywood made. And if those people walk down it, they would see that it's people's lives, people's issues that, being played out in reality. It's not any different than, what you would be going through, just unfortunately played out without a home.
Okay. Why do they crap on the street?
The lack of public toilets.
Bingo.
Yeah, and the restaurants won't let them in any longer.
Bingo.
We used to be able to use the public facilities, and yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, when what's he saying? When man's got to go,
You gotta
go.
Exactly. And we criticize them when it's really the urban center not planning and not having a policy.
Right.
Well, we just made a big, huge change onto welfare, and I hate to term it that, but in the way of food stamps, we're now criticizing what people eat. And I mean, I understand.
Yeah, I have a problem with that.
Make America healthy again, but in the way of controlling sugar, in the way of controlling caffeination, caffeine content, I agree to disagree in the regards of the food stamp issue. Here in Oklahoma, you do not have hot food commodity. In California, they have a crisis privilege that they can term onto an EBT program called hot food commodity, that you can go into McDonald's and actually get a drive-through meal on food stamps. The reason why is because most homeless do not have a kitchen to fix their food.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're forcing people into a position where, hey, okay, now we're going to do campfire meals and leave all the trash everywhere. Possibility for one, a forest fire. For two, you're going to have trash everywhere, because guess what? Homeless do not have public service or trash facilities. It's not like every tent has a trash can. That's one other thing that we're seeing here is homeless encampments that are just ravaged trash pits. We don't have really community outreach groups that are going in and cleaning up after these homeless are ran out of an area.
That became an issue for you, Eddie, in your run for city council, because it's not just the seedy side of town.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Down South Tulsa and even towards Broken Arrow, they had the major encampment off of 169 over on the other side, that way over there. But yeah, it's a tough situation. I made a saying that, or I don't know if I invented it, but I would always say, what you feed grows. Mm-hmm. And my opponent and her people used that against me, because my opinion was, the more you do, the easier you make it on the homeless, the more you're going to attract more homeless.
Yeah.
And because you just basically take all drive out of the people if they don't have to, like you say, if you can go through McDonald's and get a value meal or whatever for nothing, and I remember we were in Amsterdam, and there was a guy that used to be over there. They have shopping streets, walking streets. They're regular old streets, but they've been converted into walking only. And they'll go for miles through Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. And you just have shops all down. Mm-hmm. But in at an intersection of one, you have a guy standing out there and just with a box asking for money, never would say a word, and had just the most hateful scowl on his face even. Yet people would still give him. And then every few hours, he'd go to McDonald's, get his food, and go right back out there and stand out there again on the street. So and it's a discussion that Dave and I have had, that we know there are people with legitimate need, that society has to help them. But the more that we expand that, you're starting to draw in too many people that don't. And I'll let you speak on that if you would.
Yeah, I'll hit onto that. In Northern California, I went into a homeless transition shelter that they had an emergency assistance program, or what they called EAP, that, if dependent on how you showed transportation, whether it be your feet, a car, they would provide you transportation anywhere in the nation. That's
in the nation.
Yeah, that's courtesy of tax.
Oh, they'll bus you to Minnesota, in other words.
Wow.
Now, that's a way to get rid of the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Well, isn't that what Governor Abbott did, and bus people to New York City?
But that was an immigrant bill.
Well, I know, but it's the same principle.
I've seen people coming from out of state to take advantage of those programs, to use excuses, even with legitimate phone numbers of, hey, call this person. They're saying that I'm going to Arizona for a job. The person may be down the street from the homeless facility.
Right.
I mean, these people understand the national schemes of where you can play tax dollars and just move around.
So if you're in Nevada and
man,
if you're in Nevada and
Tony.
need to get to Michigan,
Just
your
go over
quickest route is to go to California,
California.
get a free ticket to Michigan.
Yeah. And if you show your own vehicle, they'll give you free cash for gas. And
Oh my God.
I mean,
Hey, Governor Newsom he's going to do it one way or another.
Yeah.
And what he'll tell you, Governor Abbott does it.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis does it.
Yeah, it's a little different, but man.
I mean, you need to have a legitimacy in showing that there's a stable job at the destination point, that there's a family crisis. But I mean, how legitimate can that get?
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you have people all around with phone numbers that no one can check validity of. I mean, I've worked at a cell phone store handing out government phones that anybody can sign anybody's name up on a caller ID. I mean, I had a guy one day come in and signed up for a phone, and he looked at me and he said, "My name's Barack Obama." And I said, "Well, congratulations, Mr. Obama. That's your cell phone caller ID name." So, I mean.
Yeah, because the cell phone company gets reimbursement depending on how many they put out.
Yeah.
So they have no incentive to police it.
Yeah. And that goes back to some of those phishing scams. Whenever someone calls you and it says, so-and-so company, and you're believing that, don't always. I mean, those caller ID tags are easily swappable just by calling a cell phone company and going, "Hey, I changed my company name."
Hey, Chance,
Mm-hmm.
I want to discuss a couple of things that we talked about in the other room beforehand. Yeah. And one of them, if you want to mention that film.
Yeah.
And you can get it on YouTube, correct?
Yeah. Body Brokers.
Body Brokers.
Talk to the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was it's not a documentary, but a Hollywood film that was done a few years ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Los Angeles called Body Brokers. A man from, I believe he graduated Cascia Hall, and he was actually a victim of the same experience where he had, it's almost so gullible type stuff. I'm in the cannabis industry. I was looking for something that was 420 friendly, of a sober living home to get off of my feet. And that's where these people found a lucrative marketing scheme into saying, "Oh, we're that." Mm-hmm. They're nothing close to that. It's more of what we consider a stockyard of homeless, or what you could label addicts, that's easily, exploited towards the insurance companies, and I would say extorted for the value of it. But what we call is a pay cycle scheme. So every 30 to 90 days, the addict, now in their fake rehab, will be given a dose of a fake drug to get them to overdose and get them to piss, urinate hot. When an insurance company would label them, "Oh my God, they overdosed," and then they'll give them a large amount of money for a detox treatment. Now, upon that, this is the thing about Affordable Health Care Act. With Obama passing that, you cannot claim fraud towards rehabilitation of substance abuse. But yet, if you go through your second round or third round of chemo, if that same insurance company looks at you and says, "Hey, this guy may be screwing us over cancer," they may call fraud over it.
Right.
So that means that most likely some 20-year-old has gone through treatment about 40 or 50 times, but yet you can't get chemo your second or third time.
Mm.
Okay, this is a documentary film that's you've helped with on this.
No, that one is the film about this, just about the exploitation, and it is strong content. I would not watch it with kids in the room, and it does have, I would say that it has a lot of trigger points. So if you are a former addict.
This is coming up on the National Geographic channel, right?
No, that's subsequent.
Okay.
National Geographic went and did an investigative documentary on this, and the TV show is called Trafficked with Mariana Van Zeller. She's just won 4 Emmys for this TV show. She's been on Joe Rogan 4 times now.
Okay.
But she is a journalist that she knows 5 different languages, with utilizing her dialect and just her nationality from South America. She's always been able to get on the inside of the fentanyl labs, cocaine labs. So what most people look at and say is a Hollywood set, she's actually in bed tight with a criminal.
Wow.
Now, a lot of this is National Geographic enticing the criminal to get an on-screen interview, but these are active crimes. I mean, these criminals are nowhere close to being caught.
That's coming up sometime this coming season on National Geographic.
July 19th.
And that's separate from what
birthday.
the Cassia Hall graduates done.
Correct.
And now, how do they access that one that was done here locally?
That's on YouTube Movies, and I think there may be some of the like Flick streaming services that have it. It's normally like $1.99 for a rental of it, $4.99 for the movie. But I do recommend, if you want to understand the insides of why this is what's causing the national or Native Americans here in Oklahoma to become missing, because Arizona was found doing this, and Arizona did not know that they were being complicit in helping with their healthcare authority.
The Navajo tribe, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The state of Arizona found themselves complicit in paying criminals.
What's the Navajo tribe's reaction?
Billions of dollars pissed.
So they're on board with getting this cleaned up.
Yeah.
The Navajo tribe.
So now you said people missing.
Mhm.
So where are they going? I mean, where are they?
To these fake rehabs, and then whenever they are found overdosed, these people drag them to the streets of Skid Row, and it's a proper excuse for they're just a homeless addict that died. So these people will never get caught with a murder. I mean, whenever you load a body up that's overdosed in a car and drag them down to the streets of Los Angeles and just drop them off on Skid Row with, 450 people that are doing the same drug, just 450 people aren't signed up for insurance.
So let me ask you, because apparently our government officials aren't able to come up with a solution.
No.
Do you have any suggestions?
I think what other industries have done to alleviate this is what they call know your provider and know your consumer, KYC and KYP. And what that entails is anybody that files a claim towards an insurance company, whether it be a cell phone, whether it be a desktop computer, has to have real-time monitoring to see who that person is and where that computer is. Because what we're seeing is like fly-by-night, people stealing numbers, whether it be national provider numbers, NPC numbers that validate your treatment, like these people's therapy education numbers. Those numbers are needing to be protected just as much as your driver's license and social security number, your employment numbers. Just what most people would say, okay, this is to validate who this person is. Well, someone who wants validation would take that and put that on their letterhead. And not only that, they'd fictitiously make a driver's license to go ahead and just continue that identity on.
You had said that the Obama administration had a certain executive order that says you can't investigate what again?
Substance abuse. It's not executive order. It's written into the Affordable Health Care Act.
Okay, so it's statutory code that you can't investigate these providers of detox centers.
Yeah, because of the opioid epidemic.
Yeah,
That would
okay.
be the world's worst thing at that time.
So in the 90s, the Clinton administration had much the same effect, saying you cannot investigate abortion clinics. It was a sacred cow to the Clintons. And we saw a lot of women dying in abortion clinics as a result, and it was hushed up for years. To me, it's the same kind of thing, that our politics is more important than the lives that are affected.
Yeah.
Do you disagree with that statement?
No, I agree. What we're seeing out of this is these fake rehabs. The minute the feds come in and start doing some investigating, from there, the name starts changing. Everything about them.
Okay.
Business cards on the ground start changing. The website goes dead, and then a new website pops up with the same phone number. And the funny thing is, you call these substance abuse centers, and most people have a script that they read off of.
Yeah.
This is hitting someone's personal phone that they go, hello. Yeah. And it's not like, oh, this is Grand River Mental Health.
Okay.
Sorry, Grand River.
So that's a change.
It sounds
Hello?
like Planned Parenthood too. With the
Congressman Hearn, if you're listening here, this is important. This needs a statutory fix.
Well, there is what they call ECRA, which is Eliminating Kickbacks and Recovery Act of 2018. It was a step up design for basically eliminating this. But the problem is the federal resources, which the DOJ just did come last week with a crackdown, actually 2 Oklahoma providers have been highlighted in that, but they weren't anywhere relative to patient brokering.
Okay, so that's small time. You see a little, you're hopeful, but a whole lot more needs to happen.
Yeah, and since ECRA has kicked in, we've probably seen less than 100 people prosecuted, and at the fullest extent, probably not more than 5 years at the prosecution limit. And I mean, for a crime that entails murdering a bunch of people, possibly 50 to 100 people that are your clients, 5 years is not.
Okay, that's a workaround. But really, we just need to strike that provision of the Affordable Care Act that says you can't investigate them for fraud.
Well, and not only that, we need to make insurance companies more accountable to catching their own red flags. Because insurance companies right now are going, we're not being frauded. There's not anything going on.
The problem is they're guaranteed a profit by the Affordable Care Act, the marketplace.
Yep.
Okay. You're getting close to meddling now.
I know. Well, that's what I was going to turn to you, Eddie, and say, am I wrong on that?
No, you're not. No. And, you know, it's so funny to hear this because every year I have to take, you know, this exam, especially for Medicare. And one of the supplement course I have to go through and test is fraud, waste, and abuse, and then ethics, you know.
The DEI thing. I watched you go through that.
Yeah, well, that was one. Yeah, you went to DEI, and then you started talking about fraud, waste, and abuse, and what is fraud, and your penalties for fraud, and so forth. And essentially, what you're saying, they're not monitoring fraud as closely as they could.
Plus they found out Eddie's a racist, you know. I mean, it was terrible because they treated everybody like you're a racist and don't know it.
This is the scary thing is fraud in the healthcare sector can cause death, of course. So in turn, fraud can lead to capital murder in healthcare.
But that is one of the negative aspects of it. One of the others, the biggest one though, is a rise in the costs for everyone. Because there's billions of dollars in fraud every year, and then what they do, they pass it on to.
They trickle it down to the consumer.
Exactly.
You need to talk to the Doge team because you just uncovered a bunch of stuff that I never saw Elon talk about.
There was another video or film that you had mentioned. I can't remember now because we talked about so much.
Well, if you Google Arizona fraud rehab, there's a 30-minute documentary on there that they've compiled different news stories with the Navajo tribe. And I mean, it goes into body cams of interviews of these people in the vans, the clients that unwillingly not knowing where they're going. And it's like, okay, you guys are just being maneuvered from one compound to another. What's the background? Why are you here? Oh, well, are you here for addiction treatment? No, they just said a pillow. What are you talking about with addiction treatment? Like people would normally run from that are substance users. Yeah. And that's what they're seeing here.
Yeah.
And I mean, okay, it's easy to go ahead and get an old hotel in a community. Then from there, put up a front that, hey, this is community outreach, sober living home. Then from there, checking into people for each one of those rooms, getting a therapist. There's almost a box model of this now in several states on how to set this lucrative operation up. And that's what I think the feds, they're starting to do a crackdown, or hopefully just with last week's prosecution. But in California, it's like the largest population. They just handed 2 people criminal charges. Mm-hmm. It's not that much of a crackdown.
Can I turn the page?
Please.
There's a couple of racial groups in Tulsa that just signed a compact. You know, Monroe Nichols, our friend, who you and I both voted for. I'm glad to find out that at least for now, his whole reparations deal is he's trying to target, the private sector to give away guilt money, right? You feel guilty and therefore you're going to do it. But he just signed a deal with the Indian tribes, or at least one of them, to basically say, yeah, we're not going to stop you guys for speeding. It's take it up with your tribe if they want to make a deal with that. To me, that's just flat out racism in the end.
Or reverse racism. Yeah.
Which is racism.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah. But no, yeah, that you can't. Yeah, actually, it's against the law.
It's a 14th Amendment
Right.
violation.
Yeah. You can't single out one particular either for bad or for good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I mean, that's a peeve of mine anyway. We should not have a nation within a nation.
Secular law.
Right.
Yeah. Chance, you're of a different perspective. I consider you liberal in the better sense of the word, not an, tyrannical, pseudo-fascist, woke leftist, and a libertarian in many ways. Where do you see this?
I think from the top end of the cooperation with the state is the failure part. I think for them to try resoluting it in a city municipality way is somewhat absurd because this is a federal versus state issue. But I mean, that's where I think the mayor got into an issue that probably, this could supremely go, this could go to the Supreme Court by definition. I mean, just in question, if just as bad as the McGirt versus Oklahoma, this is just as bad.
If not worse.
Yeah.
No, about a few weeks ago, I had breakfast with Koonsweiler and we talked about it, and Eccles, good friend of yours, John Eccles, right? And he's here next week. So guys, tune in. And it's really, to me, it's got to come down to a 14th Amendment federal lawsuit that goes to the U.S. Supreme Court. Will you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Eddie? You?
Yeah.
On 14th Amendment, that you cannot have, because here's the thing, I pitched this to Koonsweiler and Eccles both. When I signed up to vote, when I moved here after I got married, Harmon Moore was our election board secretary. A few years later, he got indicted and convicted of embezzlement of, I think it was like $16,000, 7-year prison sentence. The federal government, if you get indicted for, I'll take Rick Brinkley,
Right.
state senator, $1.8 million embezzled, 3 years. 16,000, 7 years.
And then served
million.
one.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a little more than one, but you're right. He did not serve the full sentence.
Right.
And it was at a minimum security kind of a posh thing in state here at El Reno. But this is the problem when one racial group or entity, part of a certain club, gets punished out of this book. The rest of us get punished out of this book. And that's the problem when you say state courts can't punish an Indian tribe member, only federal courts. And the federal court says, we don't punish that as severe as folks in Oklahoma do.
Well, and this goes back, and I don't know. This goes back to the old argument and the crack cocaine argument. Which one has the weight and which one doesn't? And
that's a good point.
Who has the heavier prosecution?
Because we were a lot easier on cocaine than we were on crack.
Yep.
And the crack was considered the poor man's vice. And the Hollywood bunch had pure powder cocaine. Yeah.
Yep. So, this argument's been played out so many times. It's just we've never decisively gotten a Supreme Court ruling on equality in the way of sentencing, on the way of, diversity. Yeah. I think that's part of the problem, to say that I think formality wise, everybody sees each other as equal. But that's not the case whenever you go through the court process.
Thank you.
Depending on what your region is, really depends on how equal you're going to be treated in a courthouse. Because, no offense, if you go to an all prominent white town and you're the only black guy going to the courthouse, do you think you're going to be treated fairly?
Okay.
It depends. I'm sure there are places where I would be.
Yeah.
For example, I my wife especially gets on me about, teases me about this, but I am routinely given a warning for speeding.
Yeah.
And, they just let me go. They'll stop me, and then they say, all right, we're going to give you a warning when I'm 40 miles above the limit or something.
Well, because he's black and polite.
Here's a better example.
Well, yeah, but the word black is important, Yeah. If my wife were driving, they'd give her a ticket or one of my kids or something.
Well, look at like a Hispanic. Do you think a Hispanic's going to be treated fairly in an all-white Ohio town? I
No,
mean, in today's
well,
America.
that's true. That's true. Well, I don't know. See, I don't want to.
And that's excluding the whole immigrant background.
Right. Oh, yeah. No.
This is
I'm just saying
that the person is a
I
legal
think,
citizen.
Say 30 years ago,
Mhm.
I would say definitely no.
Yeah.
Okay. But today, I actually think the juries are so mentally reshaped or re-educated that I actually believe that in certain instances, a Black person or a Hispanic person or whatever might get a fairer shake just because of people trying to make up, or I don't want to be seen as racist, or that's the new danger.
This is the problem that I see. I agree with the juror factor if you have a jury.
Right.
But most cases here in Oklahoma are played out with a judge deciding factor because the people can't afford a jury.
Well, that's true.
So,
well, if it's a citation on the traffic thing, it's not going to be a jury.
Right. And one of the worst examples I ever saw, there was a lady named, I can't remember her first name, but it was Spotted Crow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the Spotted Crow case?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
She got caught with
Patricia Spotted Crow? Patricia Spotted Crow?
Yeah, was she?
I think you know her, don't you? Or you met her?
I've met that.
Oh, do you? Was she? Yeah, she got like 13 years
for possession.
For possession of less than an ounce of marijuana.
Was it CBD?
This was pre-2018. This was...
Yeah, it was like 13 or 14.
2008, 2007-ish.
Yeah, there you go. And then finally, I kept trying to get Mary Fallon, pardon this lady, pardon this. I think somebody pardoned her. She finally got a pardon on her.
Well, I think John Eccles really brought up that cause when he got CBD made legal.
Yeah. But it was just ridiculous to have a mother of children, a single mom, whatever, and it gets caught with some little, possession that a couple of years later became legal anyway. And she's got 13, and she wasn't the only one. There were a lot of men there for that whole situation.
See, that you asked me about the relativity of the hat. That's another thing is I don't find it the relativity of the medical card. I think it's whether a person responsibly and respectfully possesses this.
Right.
If you're possessing it walking down the street with a bunch of kids and you're flashing a bag of pot, then yeah, you can go to jail or prison. Now, if you're doing it in the confines of your own home, carrying it in your pocket, there's no reason why a cop should harass you unless you're walking out in traffic, disorderly. If you're driving a vehicle disorderly, I agree. There's traffic citations.
Yeah.
You should have your restrictions of driving. But as far as should I go, and I agree with the whole doctor factor, especially for a first baby step into Oklahoma, it got us introduced. But as far as what we're seeing right now, here in Oklahoma, hardly anybody took control of the full aspect of their medical card. You should be able to walk down a sidewalk, and if that was the case, every home would have 6 plants of pot. And right now, it's not the case. I mean, right now, I would say a housing addition with 75 homes probably only has one person growing plants. Mm-hmm. And that's where the reliability in these dispensaries, that's what this shift should have never become, but it has become. And that's where I say that there's bad pot that's being sold here in this state, and people don't realize what this state has allowed in that manner.
Think all the money you'd save if you had your own grow for your own medicine. The taxes alone that you pay, 17%, so... Yeah. Wow. Was there anything else? It seemed like we had a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it did seem that I kept telling you to save for
talk to us about the Democrat Party.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the new party.
Yeah, I guess John Waldron is the leader of the
Well, let's go back to the whole beginning. What is the name of this new party?
I guess
Sooner something.
Yeah, it's
so now Waldron, a state rep from Central.
Well, wait, let's forget.
I know while he's looking that up.
Right, but I just want we can go into Waldron once we get there. But essentially, so now Oklahoma, we no longer have Republican, Democrat, independents. We have Republican, Democrat, and
Sooner State Party.
The Sooner State Party and independents.
Yeah.
And probably a lot of independents will probably flock to that.
Did you say libertarian too? See,
No,
libertarians.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
No, that is probably true.
So this is the fourth organized party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. So, do you think is this party more a revolt against the far left push or the more moderate push? Is this going to be a more moderate Democrat version, or is it going to be even more radically? Is it going to be?
I think it's going to be more moderate.
More moderate.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of the conservative-leaning Democrats than more of the left-leaning Democrats.
The Brad Henry types, David Walters, chambercrats.
Yeah.
You know, I can see a lot of professionals like lawyers and doctors who have left-leaning views on things, but they're not Kamala Harris fans.
Yeah.
Right. Or transgenders competing with the girls.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a new age Democratic Party is what I see it as. I mean, like you said, probably leaning more towards the alternative message of, you know, negotiating and bargaining with what the Republicans want, more or less.
But I can see, honestly, I see a bunch of Republicans gravitating to that too.
Could.
Yeah.
Some of your
It's going to be a mid party for both.
wine and cheese Republicans moving to that.
The Brookside Party.
Yeah.
You know, here's the other thing. We haven't talked too much about this. The Republican Party of Oklahoma, GOP, has had problems reporting and following federal guidelines on the organization. As such, they now are being fined to the tune of about $250,000 and have 2 years to pay it.
But I think it's Tulsa.
No,
It's the state
it's
party.
the state
Oh,
party.
I thought it was because I know the local.
Locals got money in the bank. They're doing fine.
Right, but they're
Tulsa
they're at this also being.
I haven't heard anything on that on them. I know there's this lawsuit between one administration and another. That's a separate thing. That's
Right.
and that's a civil court matter, which has been dismissed. The plaintiff said, "Okay, we're going to hold off." I think Brent Van Norman on that. I don't want to get into it too much now, but
Right.
I see him as playing a key role in that. I want to particularly reach out and commend him. Now, as a result of this, you got 2 years to pay $250,000 to the feds. If they can't do that, the Republican Party in Oklahoma could find their office doors locked by the federal government order. And one of their options is to recharter as a new organization. The reason I'm saying this is I know the Oklahoma Democrat Party has been in debt to millions of dollars. Last I heard, it was like 3 million. They were in debt. This could be a move to try to erase a debt by simply rechartering and then file bankruptcy on the old one. It could be. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Is that plausible?
I don't know. I mean, just right now, I don't see them having an active candidate for governor. I mean, Cindy Munson, and no shame on her, but there's no solution to the problems that we're seeing exist. So for them to jump ship and create something to gain a foundation for possibly a candidate, I see that as a possible start. But I would say that this is a clear definition of separation in the Democrats. I mean, there's no doubt.
I saw it in my home state, Minnesota, as a kid in the wake of the Watergate scandal. The Minnesota Republican Party renamed itself as the Independent Republican Party. We're ashamed of those watching folks.
I understand the Democrats not having a viable solution for some of the problems right now, to answering up to Ryan Walters, to answering up to just even the mental health aspect.
Yeah.
It's laughable, but at the same time, laughing isn't a solution. And honestly, to a party, people won't put their name on a line to say that's a feasible solution. We understand that it's a laughing stock. And to those that want to portray that, that's not progressive.
Yeah. And the Republicans, you can learn a lesson from this. The far radical fringe on the Democrat side which started out kind of as the Bernie Sanders campaign, has taken over the whole thing. And they've pushed out the classic Democrat, the Mike Workman here locally, ran for Congress, the kind of the Clinton Republican, if you will.
Yeah.
Democrat.
Yeah. Or Clinton Democrat, right? And it could be just simple, marketing packaging thing.
Yeah.
The rebranding. So
yeah.
So you just found out today, right?
Yeah. Well, yesterday, whenever it broke, but
what's your source?
What on that? That was K4, just Oklahoma City.
That's the Channel 4 TV network.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. That's big news, people. You heard it first, maybe here.
Yeah.
Because we didn't hear it until Chance told us about it a few hours ago.
We got Chance. I hope this isn't our last in-studio visit.
Yeah.
You've been great to talk.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Seriously, there's a lot more I would like to get from you, but we, for time's sake, this has been good as an introduction. I hope you all got something out of all of this. Again, it's good to bring someone in that's dived, more deeply. I was going to say Divin, whatever. He dived more deeply into the homeless situation, in the drug situation, and because it's a huge. I can't tell you how big of a problem this is in America.
It can happen to anyone.
Right, exactly, and therefore, I've had experience with my son, who, thank God, came out of it, and others that chances. Somewhat come out of it, I guess. But no, it's just really, really very an important matter, dealing with health, physical and mental health, with our finances. As you're saying, the amount of money being fraudulently spent on that issue is just unbelievable. We could probably balance the budget alone if we could just get a grasp on doing this right. Yeah. Because there is a right way to do this and to help people, but we're being scammed, and that really ticks me off. That's my whole issue, the scamming of America by these entities that come in, not to mention the Chinese, the cartels, et cetera, that everybody has their hands in this. Yeah. But I thank you, Chance, for coming in to open our eyes and our minds a little more to some of this. And I think we definitely want to get you back in here. So what's really was impressive to me is how much and how aware you are of so much going on in the country. Yeah, politically, and also, no, it's very important. I'm really blessed to have had you come in. So,
well, thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Yeah, we're gonna. I don't know if you're able to stick around as we finish, or
we
got to talk about.
Yeah, we can do another 30.
Bill.
Yeah, we can do another 30 minutes.
I'm gonna step out for a moment.
Why don't you do that, right. And then when you come in,
he's got to go shoot up. I'm sorry, he's got to go.
Then we'll reset. We'll reset and do the second part of the show and news wrap up.
Yeah,
around the world.
Sounds good.
Good.
Okay. See if we can get some.
I close the door to feel the cold gray pulse of the night. My soul glows warm within, yet I'm sad and still by the side. I see people hang their heads, hearts dangle by a thread, and I stop to pray for lonely lives slipping away. So many faces, so many lives, looking crazy and trying to survive. So many wonder how will it end? alone in silence. My tears, they melted in the rain. I've always shown my feelings. Now all I'm feeling is pain. Guess it's hard to understand all the love at my command. There's so much to say, but time keeps slipping away. So many faces, so many lies, so many lies. Trying to survive, so many wonders. How will it end? The answer's waiting, just let him in. Here in my heart, there's a hope that endures the darkest hour. Deep in their eyes, I see so many faces, so many lies, so many lies. And trying to survive, so many wonders. How will it end? The answer's waiting, just let him in. So many faces, so many lies, looking for reason and trying to survive.
All right, everybody. We've been having a little, I hope you people don't read lips out there because
After party.
we're having a discussion, and the chance we'll be back here in a second. But yeah, that was some very enlightening stuff. I think it's important. But again, it's like fraud, waste, and abuse is in every area.
Yeah.
I mean, of our lives. You know, the food we eat. It's in the fuel, and just government jobs, and of course now as the drug industry and fighting drugs, the war on drugs. We have traitors in the war on drugs. I mean, basically, you know, if you could treat them like we do deserters and traitors in any other issue, maybe we could get somewhere. But it's it's something that, you know, and you and I think we've both had experience. You know, I'm a former user, not of the hard stuff, but I'm a former user of marijuana and hash, as Chance and I were just discussing. And then my son, you know, he's been involved in it and have come out of it. I mean, in my case, it was an instant delivery the night I got saved. It was just that
very much
supernatural. It was a supernatural thing. Instantly, I just didn't want it anymore. Just like I was delivered from that, pornography, all these different things in an instant one night, which I honestly never thought I could quit before. And it just shows the power of God that it is very, and to me, in the end, regardless of how you look at it, that's the only hope America has, supernatural intervention.
A great Bible teacher told me, don't criticize what people have. It's all they got. Give them something better. When they have something better, they'll let go of the old and embrace the new.
And we don't realize, I don't think, that the people we run into in a certain situation, how many of them are ready to let go of that situation. They may defend it, but it's a defense because they don't see any other real hope.
It's all they know.
It's all they know. And until somehow, so that's why there's the two-legged aspect of it, and that is, you know, information and the spiritual component, prayer. We have to attack it spiritually to break down what the enemy is telling them. Basically, you know, we don't believe that we can win many of these battles, most of these battles, without a godly intervention, without that help. It's supernatural. You cannot separate. People want to separate church and state, but you can't separate faith and state. You just can't do it. And now whether you want to talk about denominations and sects and the locations, maybe there's cases where we do have to have some rules and regulations. But as far as what people believe in their core, you cannot separate that from how a nation is run.
And regardless of where they get their core beliefs from, we all have core beliefs. Our Declaration of Independence, which we're now beginning our 250th year under it, is a statement of core beliefs, values. It doesn't matter where you get it from, whether it's from sacred text or just life experience. This is what we believe, and we're founding this nation, this experiment on these beliefs.
Yeah, I'm in this discussion on, goes back to Juneteenth, a couple of weeks later now, almost a month later now. It's still an issue. There's one of our city councilors on her Facebook page brought up celebrating Juneteenth and is this and that. And then a bunch of people responded. I responded, of course, and others have responded how Juneteenth should not be a holiday. And we give, reasons for it, for various reasons, because it was one of my beefs is taking a local holiday, a local celebration was a big, important thing for Galveston, Texas. That's where Juneteenth began, Galveston, Texas.
It's a thing there.
Yeah. And it would be like, or I'll give you an example. I remember my parents, one Christmas, they said, oh, look, we decided for Christmas, we're going to give your family a television. Or no, I think it might have been my birthday. Yeah, it was my birthday. They gave my family a television. And I said, it's not my family's birthday. It's my birthday.
Thank you.
No,
you're right.
Yeah. Now, it may sound selfish, but it's reality.
I know. Yeah.
My wife and my kids were not born on my day.
I know.
This is my day.
Yeah.
Now, on their day, they get a special day.
Yeah, but you see, Jehovah's Witness would say it's all wrong. They don't want to celebrate birthdays.
Let's not go there.
I'm saying it for this because it seems to give license to selfishness.
Well,
it's my day.
Right. But see, salvation is individual.
Yeah.
Okay. God is selfish.
Yes.
I mean, if you think about it, that's what God says, worship me and only me.
I got you.
Okay.
Yep.
So here's a case where we get to feel special one day out of the year. It'd be like on an anniversary.
Yeah.
It's you and your wife's anniversary, and we're going to have a party for your whole family. Now, here's what's weird in Holland, right? This in the Dutch, when it's your birthday at the party, they congratulate all of your relatives, everybody except you.
Wow.
Dave, congratulations on your wife's birthday.
Yeah.
So congratulations on your mom's birthday, on your sister's birthday, your brother's. It is, and I always thought, that is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's that person's birthday, and you're congratulating all of the other family members on their birthday.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my view on it. But so Juneteenth. Anyway, you've discussed it. How the real end was a year and a half later with the tribes here.
Yeah.
And I brought this up. I put this in this Facebook post to answer as well. But it's amazing how many people want to take your event and make it everybody's event. And it shouldn't be. No, it's a special Galveston, Texas. They invented it.
Yeah.
It was personal. It happened there, and it needs to be celebrated in, around, and for Galveston, Texas, not for people in Oklahoma who were still slaves for another year and a half.
Yeah, and it was made a national holiday for two events: George Floyd's death and Donald Trump's Tulsa rally.
Right.
That was scheduled for June 19th.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for that, nobody had made a big deal of it. I just realized something, though. All of the treaties that the U.S. government had with, I'll say, the 5 civilized tribes, even though they did with several others, all the Oklahoma tribes, at least with the 5 civilized tribes, they were all void. And the U.S. government could have totally gone to war with the Indian Territory and totally taken away all their rights. Why? Because during the Civil War,
they joined the Confederacy.
They treated with the Confederates and went to war against the United States.
Right.
When they went to war against the United States, and the United States hadn't gone to war against them,
right,
that voided all previous treaties. So after the war was over, the federal government says, we want to form a Reconstruction Treaty with you. And it was gracious. But one of the things they said is, no, you ain't doing slaves. You know, we fought and died over these other people having slaves. Mm-hmm. And you attacked us? No, you ain't having slaves.
Yeah.
And 40 acres and a mule to everybody you free.
Right.
You know, that's the kind of thing. It's not taught.
No, but here's another thing that I kind of have an issue with. Listen, I'll just say this. The 5 civilized tribes are not, to me, representative of the Native Americans that you see anywhere west of here.
Yeah. Especially north and west of here.
Well, right. But even south and west, because as we were talking about the Navajo, you know, and down in New Mexico, you
Pueblos
have the
Mescalero
Apaches. Okay. They're Apache and Mescalero Indians. And if you drive through there, through Texas, West Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, you see there's a big difference in the poverty for them and your 5 civilized tribes running big casinos. Now, they have some casinos in some places. In New Mexico, they do. But you still, there's so much poverty there. And as you go further west to New Mexico and over into Arizona, and as you said, Wyoming, Utah,
Lakotas,
Montana,
the Dakotas,
right. It's a whole different animal. And even here's what gets me too. There are tribes in Oklahoma that are not part of the 5 civilized tribes.
There's over 20 others.
Yes. Right. And they're just like, you know, they didn't get any of those benefits that the 5 civilized. I've always said, so if these 5 are civilized, does it mean the others are savages?
Yeah.
They're uncivilized?
That's what the 5 civilized think of them.
Well,
no, because culturally radically different.
Oh, they are.
These 5 tribes from southeastern United States were very much influenced by French culture and the French traders and stuff. In fact,
they were slave owners.
LaFleur's dad was a Frenchman.
Right, and they were slave owners and benefited greatly from everything of America. Mm-hmm. Whereas the ones out west, because everything was harder and it took more to earn it, and the people didn't accept them as well. There's so many things. You talk about the Buffalo Soldiers, you know. Yeah. Natives hate the Buffalo Soldiers. Mm-hmm. There's this rift between the Black and Indian cultures because of the Buffalo Soldiers, because the Buffalo Soldiers were Black. It was a Black Union Army cavalry unit. And they were talking about savage. I mean, they were very cruel. They were very mean to the Native Americans, and the Native Americans haven't forgotten. You know, we want to remember Pearl Harbor, and Japanese went through things, but some of the things that were done to the Native Americans out west are very different
from the Northern
way.
Plains as well. Yeah.
It's Wounded Knee.
Mm-hmm.
Wounded Knee out there and all of that. It's just, it just, if people would really look at history in one way, man fell through the sin of Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Through Adam's sin, man failed. I don't care if you're Native American, if you're Chinese or Asian, black, white, and in between.
Mm-hmm.
You have a sin nature. Now, some sin nature is less than other sin nature, but it's all sin.
Yep.
And until Jesus Christ comes in and redeems and transforms a person, they're going to be tainted by the sin of Adam. And that's something we have to understand. So we have to give credit for good and bad to every race and every tribe under heaven. And another, in the case of Black Americans, you know, they want to talk about, and we've talked about this, say Shaka Zulu, you know, the Zulu, and he killed more Africans than 100 slave ships.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy, you know. And but we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. Speaking of Africa, Donald Trump had a couple African nations sign a huge peace treaty. It was Congo and
Rwanda. I'm sorry, Rwanda.
And
Rwanda.
I started looking up. They referred to it as the Great Lakes region of Africa. Beautiful high altitude lakes. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know. You've traveled Africa.
Yeah. The largest lake is the one down in South Africa. I can't remember, but then there's Lake Victoria's in Uganda.
Yeah.
And it may start in Rwanda. I can't remember, but it goes all the way
straddles
up to
the two nations.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge lake,
and then
filled
there's
with crocodiles and everything.
Yeah, and there's a couple other lakes to the west of there. They're huge. That is mostly under Congo. But yeah, high altitude, and together, almost all of those lakes flow into the Nile. So the Nile's not just from Lake Victoria, but several of them.
Well, not really. I mean, they may run into Lake Victoria, but they don't run into, because the mouth of the Nile is in North Uganda.
Right, but there's other tributaries coming from other lakes into the Nile.
Right, but it wouldn't be the Congo or Tanzania or any of those, because they're down south.
Yeah, this one is due west of Lake Victoria. They're more skinny. They don't show up on a map. Sizable, but
I've never seen them or heard of them.
I hadn't either until I looked it up. Like, Great Lakes.
Because the mouth of the Nile is in Jinja, Uganda.
Yeah,
and that's I've actually been there.
Right.
I didn't swim in it. A bunch of kids swam in it. I wouldn't get
well, as a proud Minnesotan, I'll say Mississippi River started at Lake Itasca outside of Bemidji. But that doesn't mean that the Missouri River doesn't also become part of the Mississippi.
Right, that's true.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at there.
Right. Yeah, are you saying the others are part of the Nile?
Become part of the Nile watershed.
Oh, okay. Maybe up further north they run into it, like Sudan. That's what I'm saying.
Sudan. It comes over from the west, further north than Uganda.
Yeah.
In there. So anyway, but these two remember back in the Clinton days, the Rwandan massacres and all that.
Yeah, that's underplayed.
To have these nations say, I'll meet you in Washington, and Donald Trump will solemnize this. They're basically referencing somebody they respect as an entity more than the United Nations.
Oh, yeah. It's a funny thing, but what's their name? I'm sorry, my mind got drafted. I was wondering where our guest went. But anyway, the peace treaty here is just one of many different peace treaties that Donald Trump has been able to bring about.
Yeah.
You know, what was it? The one with Saudi Arabia, a lot of the Muslim states in Israel,
Pakistan,
the
India.
Accords.
Yeah, the Abraham Accords.
The Abraham Accords as well.
But recently, Pakistan was going to war against India. And Trump himself, this is the last 2 months, got them to stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's so amazing that no one ever sees, you don't see that in the news. He gets no credit for any of this. And he's now reached out to Syria. He's made a peace with Syria and wants to help them, help the country. See, this is what I don't understand. So many of these third world nations.
This is what I'm talking about. Rwanda's here, and this is this long lake, and there's 2 or 3, 4 other lakes. This one joins into the Nile. That's Lake Victoria. So,
right.
Anyway, but yeah, that's just another. What I'm getting at is it looks right now like Trump has more influence on the world stage than the United Nations.
Yeah.
Because normally you would think Rwanda and in Congo would say, let's go to the United Nations to sign this.
Right. Hey, Chance, you can come back.
You want to join? Or I know he's answering phone calls and returning calls.
He's so important.
As you can, join us, okay?
he's Trump Jr. Yeah. He's got, what do you have, 2 phones? Oh, my son I have a son who's with the Florida Panthers hockey team, and he always carries 2 phones, and he's always answering 2 different. I think it's just a phase, and I would lose one the first day. Yeah.
But so Trump's been, a bunch of wins. Supreme Court basically slapped down federal judges and says you can do injunctions to the people that stand before you in the court.
Right.
But you can't do nationwide edicts that.
Right. That's a very, very important one. By the way, that video, are you sure it has him in it? Because it looks like it's only.
I'll reset it. Thank you. Are you able to stick around? Yeah. Okay, cool. Go ahead, Eddie.
Okay. As you said, he has now. Yeah.
Is that good?
No, turn it that way. No, the other way. A little more. There you go. That's good. Yeah, that'll work. So, yes, President Trump has, it's like he's worked much. It's 6 months now. We're 6 months into the Trump administration. And the things he's accomplished in 6 months far outweigh, I think, what even Obama did in 8 years, what Biden did in the last 4.
Yeah.
And so many others. And it's funny. I think finally a lot of the European leaders are starting to realize we got to quit fighting this guy. What's the old saying? If you can't lick him, join him. That more and more are starting to come over. I know the premier of Italy, or Prime Minister of Italy, the lady, I can't think of her name right now, but
Meloni,
yeah. And the Eastern Bloc, especially, they really like Trump, the Eastern Europeans, because Europeans are weird. Okay, Germans, the Nazi has not been beaten out of them.
Yeah. And
I say that as a half German.
Well, you were born a German.
I was born there. And the Nazi is still in there. Now, Nazi, see, you got to take the race out of it. Nazi does not stand for, I'm a white racist. That's not what it is. It's a National Socialism, okay? And let me just say, so, and they have this pride of being German. And I experienced, like, I'd run into neo-Nazis on a train. And
okay, that would be nationalism.
Nationalism, right, right. But nationalism is the Germanic people.
Oh, proud people.
Right, proud people. And so I'd go somewhere and you see them, but if you speak German to them, you're German. So it wasn't skin color. It was because so many Americans and other foreigners come there and they won't speak your language. They want you to do things their way, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it's National Socialism there. And so anyway, they still have that, the Deutsche Stolz, it's called. It's the German pride. And America has continually and consistently taken their pride. And they don't like that. And that's what the big issue. And I think the French are even worse. The French, not Mitterrand, what's his name? The current prime minister. Macron. Yeah, macaroni.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's, so I'm sorry, Chance, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Oh, turn him on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What is the Europeans' current understanding of the Rothschilds? I mean, post World War II.
You know, I've never gotten into it with them. I really don't know. For those that don't know, the Rothschild was a family in Germany and Austria, and very wealthy Jewish family, and they accumulated all the wealth, a lot of it after the French, the Napoleonic Wars, where they almost lost everything, but they came through. They basically funded the British army to defeat.
Well, they funded Hitler through kidnapping because $21 million inflated today is $491 billion. That's almost $1 trillion is what they funded the war on.
Right. Well, see, I'm not aware of all that. I'm just going back deeper into the initial history, how they became wealthy initially.
Yeah.
They were smuggling money from Spain. I think they had a lot of interest in Spain, and they were in Italy. They were bringing that money in, and then ended up financing the war. And then they decided they got smart and saw that because they were in Germany, they split up and sent the sons to different countries, and they were in like 5 countries, I think it ended up being. Well, instead of banks in all of these countries.
I will cite the authority of John Todd.
Okay.
He said that they are the ones who created, or really grew the Illuminati. If you're into,
well, they grew the ideology of building Israel out of 1948 Palestine.
Yeah. But if you really are into conspiracy theories and you know who the Illuminati is purported to be, the Rothschild's name is very much
right.
According to John Todd.
I prefer to
John Todd doesn't lie.
Right. Yeah. I prefer to just stick to the realities that we know, the banking system.
Tweaking, yeah.
I know.
My family's always been a Masonic family, Masonic members. So I've stayed away from the conspiracies of what was in, because knowing family members, you
don't throw stones when you live in the glass house.
Do I want to imagine my uncle at a sacrificial tribunal? No.
Yeah.
But I mean, living in California, we do have places out there for, well, I guess the mega rich.
Now, your dad was part of Odd Fellows over by Hertz Furniture Place upstairs.
Was Diddy a part of that?
No.
No, but what's Beyonce says with Jay-Z?
Yeah.
They're into the Illuminati. As far as they're always flashing whatever that sign is supposed to be. I can't get my fingers to do that.
Well, I mean, me and him have talked about the Masonic tie-in into the Tulsa area, the royal gestures upon, the Terrence Crutcher case.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you dwelled into that, but the royal gestures, secular club of the Masons, which is basically attorneys, judges. It's more of the legal division of a community is what has been prominently seen in history. But I guess other areas, metro areas, the royal gestures have been caught with prostitutes. I'm not saying that the Tulsa group has, but there were letters that were surrounding the grand jury back behind Tulsa County on the Terrence Crutcher case, that a letter was passed around Tulsa from the royal gestures, basically saying to the grand jury to sway it towards against the family. So I think the Frontier, Dylan Goforth, hit into that.
Yeah, you were way ahead of the curve. One day you called me and said, "Hey, man, something's coming down on P. Diddy."
Yeah.
We've had you want to encapsulate what happened, because the trial's just now.
Well, it's dwindling down now. I mean, I guess
basically he got convicted of 2 lesser charges, has to do with transporting for prostitution, right?
Yeah, instead of the RICO, instead of the full trafficking charge. He's getting a trafficking, basically, assistance charge. So he's not getting the full scope of the charges of what they assumed in the very forefront. Right. So
in a minute or two, tell us what you think actually was going on.
I think that it was a personal sex ring for himself, his own, and I hate to use the term fetishes, freak offs, whatever you want to term it, but for own his there, if you look into the evidence that they used against him, different exhibits of different kinds of videos, the man was categorizing his sex fantasies.
But it wasn't just for him.
No, he was doing it more for a secular group that he was paying to play. I mean, causing them. This is
an Epstein type thing, right?
And he's using Scientology type methods to hold it against a lot of clients. Yeah. So that's what they're finding out is the man thinks that he's the ultimate empire. He thinks that he's unstoppable. And actually from the jail cell, they've seen him witness intimidating. He's using code word and keywords. The phone calls from his jail are so cryptic.
He ticks somebody off because the Biden administration is who gets credit for this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's face it. We've got to give them their due.
This had all the red flags without the Biden administration. This would have been caught by the FBI in any administration. So
I've seen them turn a blind eye to so much.
The whole prosecution of that, I think he was seen as probably a criminal group within the FBI getting into, I mean, he had maneuvered from celebrity status to criminal group.
Okay.
I mean, with the Kid Cudi, the other, one of his artists that had a vehicle explode, I think that's showing that he's Suge Knight type capabilities.
Okay.
And people like them, we've got Pelican Bay and we've got several places for him. So now I think he retained some of the best attorneys. That's where they argued this and said, Cassie, the girlfriend, guess what? She was getting a lavish lifestyle. She was getting treated, here's what his expenditures are to her. Here's what her trauma consists of in a verbal way.
Okay. So he had the O.J. Simpson attorneys kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
That level of
Cochran Shapiro type.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think out of this, once his charges are dropped, you're going to see them come out and highlight themselves as Pete Diddy's attorneys. I mean, that's what's funny about him is anybody that touches him, it's like they relinquish gold. So, his artists, he's that kind of person. Yeah,
most people think that the two convictions will be sentenced to run concurrently.
With time served.
And then you take out that. So we're talking probably at most 4 years.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think justice is done?
No. This goes back to what me and you were talking about, health insurance and what the repercussions are of certain industries. I think no one saw that celebrity stardom would involve sex trafficking in the very end and the trauma that dwells into it. And I mean, this is the radical repercussions of something going on.
The cultural fallout.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Ashton Kutcher's already had enough problems of his own.
Oh, yeah.
And this added to it because he's seen at a lot of these parties.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, I would be willing to bet you anything that Diddy's not the only one.
No.
I mean, that this is rampant. We looked at Harvey Weinstein in that situation, and then now you've got Diddy, and I guarantee you there's producers, directors, etc. I'll make you a star, just do this. And then on the other side, you got all the people with the money and the influence that like to be seen at these things and want to partake in all of these things. And that's, he just happened to get caught. He might have gotten too cocky, too arrogant, and somebody decided, we can't have you do this. You're starting to expose, and it might have been people inside that decided, wait a minute, he's going to ruin it for all of us.
They started exposing him. I mean, he saw people falling down around him, and it's okay. We need to start getting the crew together to start intimidating him. That's what that's what extenuated the whole circumstances of him not getting out of jail in the forefront. It's not the whole, you're going to flee. It's you're going to intimidate and possibly kill the witnesses. And then we have a dead case.
Yeah.
And literally nothing around you except for videos.
Yeah. You and I've watched Kanye West it's almost like he wants to keep up with the P. Diddy's, but he doesn't want to network. And he's crash and burning, Eddie. Kanye is. I mean, the woman that last winter he was parading around nude all over Hollywood parties, she's left him. And Milo Yiannopoulos had been working with him. I guess he's done now with Kanye. So I don't know. But, you know, Kanye, that's a mental health thing.
Yeah.
I think you and I understand.
I don't think it's full mental health. I think it's substance abuse causing mental health. I think the man's doing a legal substance, and that's
You don't think he's got a bipolar condition?
I think it's that is exacerbated by what he's doing.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think he has a minimal trait that's been drawn out by substance abuse.
Okay.
I mean, if you follow him to see what he's doing and what he's saying, there's times in his life, like during the day, that he's having peaks.
Yeah.
That's consistent with someone that's unstable, that's doing something, you know,
Yeah.
fluctuating.
Okay.
And that's what you're seeing with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I actually got to meet him. He seemed rational back then, but that was before he went off, you know, on the whole.
When he's in
Big deal.
Hollywood, he goes to church with Marilyn Manson. Still tease him. Marilyn Manson started going to Kanye's church.
Yeah, he was going
That's
to
what it
Kanye's
was.
church, and my family, we went there one
His daughter.
Sunday, and Marilyn Manson was sitting in front of me, and we're in the middle of it, and my daughter said, "That's Marilyn Manson." I said, "Oh,
Joe.
really,
Yeah.
Marilyn Manson?" But you wouldn't know it. I mean, because he was he was kind of trying to had a hat on and stuff. You know, he was trying to hide himself.
He's a very eccentric man. I mean,
Yeah.
from the ties, I remember seeing him on MTV. They actually copped a shot of him whenever he was in high school before he became the said Marilyn Manson.
And he was already.
And I mean, he was the gothic type,
Yeah.
like loner.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what I perceived with him at that, I believe even he, like an Alice Cooper. See, Alice Cooper, I think, should take the time to go visit him or something, because I think he was truly wanting to seek God. I think he was wanting to do that. And then of course, the sad thing is you got Kanye, who just goes off, you know, and that's why the Bible says don't ever anoint somebody too early, too soon.
A
because-
novice, yeah.
A novice, because they're liable to hurt you more than help you.
well, I mean, people have seen the history of the rock star life. I mean, once you get into that, the drugs that come into play, the coping, I think a lot of it is, hey, you're going on stage in 5 minutes. I don't care what you're going through, you know, shore up. You've got a performance with tickets sold. I mean, the people that are managing these people are lifeless except for money. I mean, whenever they see the spikes in it, that's their therapy.
Or they just don't have the backbone to say, no, you've had too much.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, like WWE, you look at World Wrestling Entertainment, Vince McMahon, what was it, Owen Hart, whenever he fell to his death. One of the most heartless things was looking at Bret Hart, the brother of him, and then looking at all the performers and going, hey, it happened mid-show. We've got a show to go. I mean, while they're transporting a guy's body to the hospital, you know.
The show must go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the old trapeze artist falling to his death.
Oh, that was part of it, guys.
Yeah.
Speaking of show must go on, they just announced yesterday Trump's planning to do a UFC fight there
at the White House.
Yeah, I think it's going to be in the Eclipse.
I'm
the
sure
Ellipse.
people at the Secret Service are just shaking.
Oh, they are. They are.
I mean, yeah.
But that's his peeps. That's his people. You know, he loves those guys and they love him, you know. So, yeah, it's kind
He
of
didn't
fun.
love him whenever he got hit in the air.
When he got what?
Whenever he got clipped in the ear. He didn't love Secret Service then.
Oh, no. I'm talking about the
Yeah,
UFC
Dana.
fans.
Dana
Yeah,
White.
Yeah, all of those. And the audiences, when he shows up, the people just go nuts, you know. And so it's just kind of funny. Speaking of that, this shows how crazy, to me, people are. Jason Kelsey got slammed as being tone deaf because of the 4th of July post and the big, beautiful bill signing, you know. And so
Who's Kelsey?
Jason.
Taylor Swift's. Isn't that?
Well, it's the other one. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
yeah.
the Eagles. He was a center.
The center for the Eagles. Jason. He's the brother of
Retired now, right?
Travis.
Yeah,
Travis. Right. Yeah, Jason is retired.
Yep.
But Travis is still with the Eagles Kansas City, the tight end. But anyway, Jason said, man, I love the 4th. One of the great days we can all set aside differences in this country and enjoy the one thing we all share in common, that we are American. Cheers to you, oh beautiful America, he wrote. Almost instantly, he was ripped in his comments. The left, I mean, what's wrong with that? He's celebrating America, talking about he was celebrating the unity and of everyone in the country, and instantly they went after him, and set aside differences. One party wants to feed children, the other wants to feed brown people to alligators. One person wrote. I mean, what gets me is not only are the posts just off base, they're just stupid. They're just some of the wildest, craziest. Unfortunately, Jason, this is not real life to many. They signed the worst bill for so many Americans today just to rub it in our faces. I know it's hard to understand, but so many will suffer. I love you, bud, but you're so out of touch. I beg you to please read the room. So many are suffering. One man said, nothing beautiful about this country right now. So anyway, it's just it's just sad that you got people that are so.
But can I say something? I'm going to be an equal opportunity criticizer of both Trump and Biden.
Okay.
There were times I felt like Biden diminished the integrity of the office of president, particularly when he turned his last couple State of the Union speeches into political rallies. And what I saw yesterday from Trump on the balcony was about as bad. There's a time to be presidential, to be unified, and not settling the scores and disparaging individuals who oppose you.
So what are you specifically speaking of on the balcony?
He basically,
because the only thing I saw was a flyover.
The politics of, and diminishing people who stood in his way. He was bashing Jeffries and in others. And I largely turned it off. So I can't be all that specific right now. But it's not that he doesn't have a right to say it. That wasn't the venue.
Well, but here's the problem. Here's how I see it a little differently. We'll let you, maybe you have a third view, but there are two different entities here, two different issues. One is the signing of the big, beautiful bill. So on that, he was bashing Jeffries and the Democrats, okay, which I believe he had a right to do.
Yeah.
Regarding, it just happened to fall on the 4th of July.
That's the part of it.
And but you can't wait until Monday to come out.
Okay. What did he do when people criticized him for coming to Tulsa on Juneteenth? He moved it to the next day.
Right.
Okay. He said, I'm going to make this signing part of the 4th of July events with the military flying over to help make it a bigger deal, which turned into a political. You don't put the military into a partisan event.
I don't think he did. Because the military, that event was planned. All of that was planned weeks, if not months.
I know.
It just happened that Congress ratified this on that day.
And he chose to start his speech right as that plane was coming over.
Well, that's the beauty of America. And
Jeffries could have been over at the Washington Monument doing the same thing.
This is what we like to do. Let's get a third opinion here.
I honestly
please tell us why he's wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
No, with what I take out of Trump all the time, I think that there's a presidential Trump, and then within him there's a commentary Trump, and it's which side you're hearing, and that's one thing that I think it's like watching someone watch TV. You have commentators on the sports, and then you have like the uncle that's screaming, at the screen, almost as like the commentator. Same concept. He's commentating on his own reality in his head. And a lot of times we don't know how to take that, how to swallow it, because he's had either history personally with these people, or he's had his own radical way of thinking of these people based off of public perception of what he sees on the news.
Yeah.
And I have taken that in to see that he's watching context as well. He's not, he's not there on the scene. It's like the whole eating the cats, eating the dogs. He wasn't there. He's taking that as a source from something else. So, I mean, that's where he doesn't really know the context to even be commentating. And that's where he comes out to be a fool on social media. And in the same regard, I mean, I think that a lot of ways, even about his own bill, he's going in and commentating on his own bill, on his own likings, his own work. And it's like, okay, most people don't criticize themselves.
Right. But he's a pitch man at heart, right?
Yeah.
You break him down.
Well, he's used to sitting in a room with multiple people just criticizing. So that's basically what he's doing in his head, is criticizing himself. And we're getting to see it played out on his Twitter and Truth account.
Or defending himself.
Do you remember Bill Maher was invited by a few other of Trump's friends, Dana White, Kid Rock,
Joe Rogan.
and,
Yeah.
I don't know. Joe wasn't there, was he?
No, but I think he pitched it.
Yeah. Is it, come on, Trump's not who you think he is. And Bill Maher said there's a dichotomy. The guy I had dinner with was fantastic.
Yeah.
Why can't that guy be the guy I'm seeing on TV?
It's funny because I remember hearing the same thing about Bill Clinton. Everybody that meets Bill Clinton says that he's a totally different person when you meet him. He's the most pleasant, engaging person.
I think during Clinton's time, it was Hillary being the puppet master. And I think during this time with Trump has people that are paid by his company that put him up like this. And that's what we're seeing is loosely, it's like if a puppet was being ran by one person doing the arm, one person doing the leg.
It's always a consortium of powers that gets, somebody's the titular head.
Yeah.
But only because of a coalition they put together, and you can't tick them off.
Yeah.
I mean, John Eccles, who's going to be in next week, he says, I became, Charles McCall and I early came into leadership because we put together a coalition. Well, without that, he says, I could be a backbencher.
If you start looking at the advisement, the different times of Trump, he's had different ups and downs during that. It's like Scaramucci, Sean, Spicer, all of them had different ways of advising him. And it was pushed out to us, whether it be Twitter or Truth. And it's almost like a person who's manic. I mean, they're going from one far to this far. And it's like, okay, we can, for us that see that someone's being advised, this is like, okay, this is what this guy's agenda is. And this is this one.
A part of it, though, we have to understand comes from his background and growing up. And where did he grow up? In New York City.
Yeah.
And in New York City, you've got to promote yourself.
Yeah.
You cannot go in with a negative mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he has taken the mogul Donald Trump, real estate mogul and a negotiator and deal maker and so forth. And he's taken that and he's bringing it into government, into the White House.
Yeah.
And that's what people can't get used to. New York people are used to that kind of behavior, that kind of background. But he's brought that in, and the rest of America is kind of, especially those that don't like him in the first place.
3 weeks ago, on Flag Day, happened to be his birthday. Okay. He put together a celebration of the U.S. Army. He acted presidential through that. That's the guy I was hoping to see on the balcony. And it's just tough because it's just the backdrop and everything. Because I got so irritated with Biden doing this. And in all fairness, I've got to call out Trump when he goes too far into partisanship when you need to be unifying the country.
Yeah, but at the same time, Jeffers and the Democrats needed to be called out. They need, and the problem. And if you wait too long, that weekend news cycle.
I know
by Monday, it's gone.
I think the FAA DEI issue was a complete deflection from Trump because that's whenever we had, what was it, the plane collision over Washington.
Yeah, the Reagan Airport.
Yeah, the helicopter, military helicopter that flew into the plane. FAA air traffic control. Someone was not looking at the radar. They're watching over 2 radars. Well, Trump's whole argument with that was DEI hires. It was diversity, equality, Oh my God, we can't
completely disagree with Trump on that.
Well, the funny thing is you start looking at FAA guidelines to even hire someone for air traffic control, someone that's never been diagnosed with mental disorder ever in their life.
It's the hardest job.
Tell me, how many people do you know that has, by the age of 18, have never been diagnosed with any mental disorder?
In today's public school system, who knows?
Well, also another requirement of them, they cannot have high blood pressure during stressful situations.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what kind of person would not have high blood pressure during a stressful situation? That is the sign of a sociopath.
Yeah, but the problem,
well, how do you even test for that? I mean, what do you do? Release a lion in the room or something?
Correct.
But the problem is that FAA has no authority over military aircraft.
No.
They can advise them, and that's it.
Well,
and a civilian aircraft would have been an entirely different conversation.
Right, but the criticism wasn't with the general situation. What it was, the specific, it felt like it was they were understaffed.
Oh, yeah,
but he deflected from the general for a reason.
That is a deflection in itself, because
he's going DEI hires.
The copter should have been where the copter was.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And the military should have said, that's on us. We are kicking butt to make sure it never happens again.
We will not do any more DEI hires. No.
I'm saying the military.
I'm still cracking up over Los Angeles and the DEI issue there, but
yeah, I know.
No, it's no. We got to separate the things, okay? And you're right. He probably should have. And I have a feeling that he was advised, again, as we were saying, that he was advised
on what to
say that and bring it out. But DEI hires are a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my son flies for United Airlines, aside from the Coast Guard. But anyway, and United publicizes this program they have where an 18-year-old black kid, a Hispanic, minorities in particular, they can come and they get this flight training, free flight training to basically create pilots.
That's expensive.
Oh, I know. But it just seems, in the way it's portrayed, now I don't know, this was an article I was reading, it's portrayed as being just rushed through, that the amount of hours, the amount of the level that basically affirmative action type of situation where. And
it's free if you're a minority.
Right.
That's racism.
Well, yeah, sure. Hadn't stopped them before.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as it's not a government funded, United is a private entity, but
they have the right. As a company, they have the right.
Yeah, they have the right to hire and train whoever they want. But that's kind of thing that plays into his mentality. That and from what I understand, this particular pilot, she used to work in the Biden administration. And it seems like maybe she was not as qualified as she should have been. Okay. That particular.
Well, she was on a training flight. Right. She was being trained.
Right. And so
she killed herself and her trainer.
Yeah. And the trainer, who was a man, he needs to be as much at fault.
Well, he's dead now.
Yeah. I remember when I took driver's ed, they used to I don't know if the driver's ed cars still have this, but they have their own brake pedals. Do they still have that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, like I'm trying to do something. Why is this car not moving? I find, he's got his foot on the brake over here. They don't have a wheel, but they do have the brake, they can grab the wheel here. But that should have happened in that case. And I'm with you. I mean, I understand a lot of times Trump jumps out there too early and too strongly on a certain position.
Well, yeah,
But it's based on the info he gets, and then later on. But see, here's the thing with Trump. He will never say, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And they ask him, he just won't do it.
He's an opportunist, you know.
He just will not admit when he's wrong. He just moves on. And it's in a way, I mean, you got to give it to him. I think it's a habit that has worked.
But would you train your child to be that way?
No.
You whip his butt.
Well, no, I don't. No, I think they would know. Well, it depends on the age.
I know it. That's
yeah, and so, but you know, maybe he was Fred Trump may have trained him that way. You know, don't ever let them get you down to, you know, never admit you're wrong. You know, something like that. I don't know what his upbringing was or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, but to me, Dave, for him to, there are two things here. Like I said, the Democrats didn't hesitate to wait to slam the bill. And I think he wanted to be sure to use the opportunity to come back. And now it was unfortunate that it happened to be while he's there on the balcony and, you know, and giving that speech. But Trump is Trump.
And I think this bill has a similarity to the Affordable Care Act legislation. We're going to find out later things about it we don't know. You know, I mean, we have not.
We have to pass it before we see what's in it.
Yeah, that's the line I'm getting at.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No,
that was Pelosi.
Said it about that.
Marjorie Taylor Greene voted yes, and then she came back out and said, "Well, if I would have read this, this AI state bill, you know, this language is going to kill us." Yeah.
Now, in one sense, you say, great, Washington's actually back on a budget again. Because we've been doing continuing resolution and just pay the bills, just pay the bills. Like, where's the budget? Just pay the bills, you know. But so much got gutted out of it by the senators and by the parliamentarian.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I do not understand.
You know what? Every senator seems to agree that she's doing her job. They don't like it.
Well, to me, what is the job of the parliamentarian?
Okay. In order, this particular thing, they're allowed either one or two bills per session that don't need a 60 vote threshold for closure. They must be spending bills or like Supreme Court, you know, consent. And they said, no, this clause in here is a policy change. And that's not governed by the exclusion. So you got to take that out and have that a set aside bill that's voted on using regular Senate rules. I think it was it Medicaid to illegal immigrants, I think. Was a policy change. She said, no, that's not an authorization of spending. You could argue it is, but she said, no, the stipulation for who qualifies is more of a policy thing than a financial authorization thing. I don't know. That was the closest thing to saying she's pushing her agenda too much. But generally, people who know her said, no, she's actually pretty competent. You haven't heard her name in the news, and she's been there forever.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out, because wasn't she there in Clinton?
Harry Reid put her in.
Harry Reid, yeah.
She's been there that long.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. I'm likely to think that they just tried to cram too many things in here and got caught.
Now, as I understand, they'll be able to tweak it later with subsequent.
It'll be a separate bill.
Right.
On those things. And we'll see. We know what they go to die because of that. I mean, there's times you and I as conservative back in the Obama days said, thank God for the 60 votes. Because remember, for a while, the Democrats had 60, and that's how they got Obamacare. In fact, then Ted Kennedy died. And what's his name? Scott, that Republican, won a special election. So then they couldn't change the bill when the House got a hold of it, because when they go back to the Senate, they don't have closure anymore. So they had to run the Senate bill. You know, it just was nuts. It's the worst written bill I've seen, the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah.
And it gave way too much power to agencies. And I don't know. Now, I don't think we'll ever get rid of Affordable Care.
No. It's creeping towards socialized medicine. That's all it is. It's not the camel's nose. The entire head.
Yeah,
is under the tent now. But
I gotta say this. I didn't in the last segment show. Chance, back to the interview. Mm-hmm. So you lived in Northern California for a couple of years, right?
Just a year.
Okay. And here you are in ultra red Oklahoma, back and forth. The impact of how you see life, and you're an intelligent guy and a very independent thinker, but living in these two very contrasting cultures, how does it affect just the citizen in you?
I mean, just seeing how much people contribute into society. I mean, that it beholdens me what kind of government that's going to be established. I mean, even though we say that, Oklahoma does this, and this for its citizens, you can be over in California and you're like, whoa, they do this, and this.
Yeah.
And I think their mental health services play more into a family relationship. And I did see that. And I'm still shocked that Oklahoma doesn't do that more. The county sheriff's department has parenting courses for children that have hit the juvenile sector. Here in Oklahoma, we don't do that. I mean, you don't see the counties that are putting in a full-blown package to say, okay, here's families, here's 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, here's training in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
They're leaving it towards nonprofits, NGOs basically.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing here versus there. It's them stepping up with their tax dollars paying for it.
Well, and their debt, because we actually have to have a balanced budget every year.
Yeah.
They're crying out for federal bailouts constantly.
Yep.
It'd be nice. I mean,
now, I will tell you this, whenever in regards to Northern and Southern California, the big issue is the Southern California depletion.
Depletion, what's that word mean?
Any kind of tax dollars that they get, it's depleted in a population of LA County of 43 million people. I mean, that's where the budget issue is. Okay. Actually, Northern California, even in regards to what they want, they would almost want it a separate state.
That's an issue up where you were living at.
Yeah, in regards to...
There were votes on secession, weren't there?
Oh, yeah. Actually, that area is notably known as the state of Jefferson or Cascadia. And I mean, they've gone through times whenever they wanted to separate because of, no representation.
And Eastern Oregon. They literally wanted to become part of Idaho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not the first time in U.S. history that a pocket of people said the state's not doing enough for us or not taxing us at a right rate or giving us back in taxes what we do. So, I mean, that's one thing. You're living in a bubble of people that have already thought that way and said, hey, we've succeeded in our own eyes. Mm-hmm. Here in Oklahoma, people don't look at it and say that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why this whole Democratic Party starting up, an offsect of it, that is something new in the way of Oklahoma history, is because we haven't seen a divide in the way of culture. So I think that in regards to people grouping up against a government, I would say California, in regards to understanding that, it's more grassroots movement that they will, single-handedly do that.
They ignore state law up there a lot, don't they?
Oh, yeah. You see college campuses that have protests on them compared to here in Oklahoma where, you'll have 3 or 4 college students that are holding picketing signs up at the corner, and that's it.
Yeah, but I'm talking about even their marijuana laws.
Oh, yeah.
They do bartering up there that's totally illegal.
Yeah.
And everybody does it.
In regards to the lack of money, it's like if you produce high-grade hash that someone wants, then you go to a restaurant and just lay it down on a table, and that's your payment. They understand what the worth of it is. So
That's funny.
Blew me away when he was telling me this on the phone.
yeah, I mean, in regards to like, if you don't have gas, if you've got a little bit of pot that you grow in your backyard, it's worth money. I mean, it's may not be worth it to them, but in regards to a tourist that's passing through, it's Humboldt County.
Right, because they're barred from selling it unless they jump through a bunch of hoops and pay a bunch of fees and taxes and everything.
Yep.
But if it's bartered.
Yeah. If it's traded just on the way of here's a mill for what you do, or here's services, I'll mow your yard for 6 months worth.
Wow.
I mean, they remove the whole aspect of the money because that's
it's a cashless society, Eddie.
Yeah.
Just bring your pot.
Now, yeah, in regards that, you know, you go into a gas station and want to buy that person's, there's still money there, but people aren't lucrative in saying, okay, we're going to stack millions.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I noticed. 1800s homes revolve around protective housing. I mean, you can't build multi-million-dollar mansions. You can't. That's here in Oklahoma. You've got vast amounts of land. Whenever you make millions of dollars, you can build that pool. You can build an 18-bedroom home. You can have a 6-car garage.
Yeah.
But whenever you're protected by the ocean on one side, trees on the other, and 1800-year-old homes that, you know, can't be touched, you're stuck with what do you do with all this money?
Yeah, Eddie, when you buy a house or consider a house there, you got to hire a lawyer to go through all of the things that house is subject to.
Right.
You can't hardly paint. You can't even change the color of the paint on the house without the community approval, right?
It is here. I would say that here we have cookie cutters type homes. Everybody has the standard colors. There you find, I mean, like Amsterdam, a colorful world. People are painting on houses. There's a lot of graffiti that's well accepted. Here you find graffiti underneath overpasses where people subject themselves to, I don't want to even look at it.
Yeah, I'm just talking about something, we'll call it like historical homes kind of thing, you know, where there's certain requirements.
Yeah.
Downtown Sapulpa is that way. I don't know if they did that to downtown Jinx.
Downtown Jinx has an appearance code. I mean, any kind of graffiti or painting on the walls have to be approved by the downtown district's, you know, committee that they've approved for appearance. No backlit signs, at least.
Right. But that kind of thing has gone, and then the environmentalists totally control.
Yeah. Now in Northern California, it's like backlit or LED signs, your big, huge billboards, not legal.
Wow.
Because of wildlife. I mean, intrusion of what it could do to them. It's like the 5G the 5G towers, the cell phone towers, they have to be appearance towards looking like a tree.
Right. See, here we quote scripture. There they quote the Sierra Club, right?
Oh, the Earth Day. Well, Arcata, California, they had the Earth Day flag approved as their town flag.
Yeah.
And they decided that they were going to put it at the top of the town flagpole, which, if you know what U.S. flag code says, it says that nothing shall go above the American or the POW flag.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did this for about a year or so. And then the city the town passed a petition taking it to court. The funny thing is the people that approve the flag are the same ones that are won in the court case to validate the reasons why the flag can't be at the top of the pole. But yeah, they did finally move the flag down to the lower end of the flagpole, but still defiantly they did it past deadline of the court case just to, you know, just to show opposition.
I want to switch real quick because this is a really important and tragic story, but the floods in Texas, Central Texas, Kerrville. Now, I don't know if you've been following, there's this a Christian camp with these girls. The girls were
about 30 miles west of Austin.
Right. And
San Antonio.
3 girls have been confirmed dead. And there's another 13, I think, that are missing. There's another.
Yeah, I saw 10 people were claimed missing and they were looking for them. But
well, actually, I'm sorry. I said dozens of missing girls.
I heard something about 27. And
that would be dozens.
Yeah.
This is in Austin, though?
Near Austin. It's a little bit, is it Kerrville West, a little west of Austin, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of northwest of San Antonio, just about due west of Austin, maybe more like 40 miles west of Austin. So it's, it's close. And Austin is sprawling, so it's almost getting to be a suburb.
But it is a tragedy. I mean, those parents, oh, man, gee. I guess nobody saw this coming. I don't.
It was a flash flood.
Yeah. Can you imagine a flood that quick?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? The photos of Kerrville itself, how there's this one, I saw it online where it showed Kerrville just normal, this nice street and golden houses. And it's from a bridge. And next thing you look, the other one, everything that you saw is covered and it's just water, it just is unbelievable. But it should teach us respect of nature, and just how
after
devastating.
living in Northern California and going through a tsunami warning, that tornadoes are one thing, but tsunamis, if they forecast a big, huge wave coming at you.
Did it hit?
No, actually, we had a freak of nature where the whole bay drained out like a bathtub, and all the ships and boats that were actually docked, they just sat down on the sand for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then they just came back.
Wow.
Yeah.
In which part? Where was this?
Northern California.
Which town?
Arcata and Eureka.
Oh, okay.
I remember that day.
Yeah.
Because you were under, and I called you. You were in
December, and it was December or January. And that afternoon, I went back out to Wembley Island, which is basically between Samoa and Manila. It's the peninsula. It's the little island between there. And the funny thing was, I was talking to a guy that had a boat, and I said, "Did you guys know what happened earlier?" And he said, "The tsunami, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "You guys evaded the area?" And he goes, "No." He said, "Actually, our boats just sunk down to the sand." And he said,
Humboldt Bay drained."
Yeah, you can actually watch the wildlife cameras, the forest cameras, just watch the bay just drain out and then just come right back. But most of the time, I mean, laws of science say that whenever there's a big, huge pullback of water,
it should come in.
You want to clear the area because of what happens. Because Indonesia got hit that way.
Yeah, what goes down? That's the Indonesian beach. They all walked way out there. Because, he's like, "Hey, Mom, look what's there." Something that fell out of a boat, and now you can go grab it. Right. Well, you're probably not going to make it to shore because in about 3 minutes, Well,
how many times do you get to see great white sharks just like sitting on top of
around?
Yeah. I mean, for 3 to 5 minutes, they're almost freaked out. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
The seals didn't know what to do, whales. But that afternoon I went back and they said, our boats just went back, settled right back up.
Yeah. By the way, this is according to Governor Abbott, 24 people are dead. At least 240 people have been rescued, but there's still 23 girls from a church camp
that are missing.
They're missing 23. And, with every hour, it's looking less and less. Because now we're past 24 hours into this.
Yeah, you would.
So, that's an interesting deal. But, Chance, you and I talked a lot. You were still out there when the whole crackdown on illegal immigrants came in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, down in Southern California, Eddie was talking about South Central, that back during the days of Rodney King was very black. The Hispanics have taken over.
Yeah, Compton and Watts. Particular.
And the question, I guess I'd like to get your sense from your contacts and people, is this going to be a lawless summer? Riots? I got the feeling things are calming down from where they were a month ago.
I think people are fearing the law and order right now. I mean, honestly, in the way of protesting and riots, I think out of seeing the No King protest, I think people were a little bit more sane than versus 2011, even the Occupy protests. I mean, you had people busting out windows on that. On this, you're not seeing that as much.
I think a lot of it too, maybe because a lot of the organizations funding these have been outed.
Yeah.
And there have been some crackdowns on these organizations that have been funding these things because, there are people on the payroll that are actually being paid to show up at these things, and
Yeah.
you see the same people from traveling all around the country.
And I don't know. I mean, Elon was making a lot of claims early on about Doge that really, we went from about $5 trillion we're going to save, came down about 150 million, and I think he overpitched it.
Well, I think maybe yes, but I think a part of it is he started meddling, as we say.
Mhm.
I believe the 5 trillion are there. I thought it was 3 trillion, but let's say 3 or 5. But I believe it really is there. The FWA, the fraud, waste, and abuse. However, for the peace of Congress, there are too many people, Republican as well, not just Democrats. You name them all. They're all getting paid.
Yes, and this is our problem.
That's what the real problem
right,
is.
and this is where I'm tying it in with Chance talking about, is where the funding is coming from. A lot of it could eventually go back to USAID or other such government entities writing grants that are getting laundered into political money.
Well,
Money.
Whenever I was living in Arcata, whenever the Doge first hit into USAID, it was awkward because Arcata is only a population of 11,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, downtown district, I wouldn't size it any larger than probably Bixby or Glenpool. It's not even, it's small.
And it's sprawling too.
Yeah, but we had a news story that came out about a dead building that really hadn't been utilized. I had never seen it utilized in my time there, which had only been a year. But even going back, just asking people in town, I said,
yeah,
what was the building before? And they said, well, it's always been a building next to the post office.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it comes to find out, in the USAID budgeting, this building in Arcata, California had been used to funnel $500 million plus to different press groups, Russian Federation, Afghan. This is all basically liberal news.
Mm.
And everybody, even in the community, it was just like, okay, well, we're going to get bomb threats for one thing. Like, people are not liking what Doge is turning up. And for people to do research and find out this is a nothing building, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's the group's called Internews, which they set up press corps in new established nations after wartime, which it doesn't surprise me that they would be in, the USSR area or current day USSR because of conflict, and also Afghan region, Iran, Syria.
Africa.
Yeah. But most of it is on the basis of, more of a socialist economy, socialist style of government.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to see the trickle down money, I would have never thought that living in a small town in Northern California, that this thing would have been funneling.
Well, yeah. See, Chance, you early, and this was before you moved back here this spring. You repeated a lot of these things to me that people were concerned. Very dire, very scary. The worst possible version of how dark and terrible and evil a Trump administration be. These people really believe it.
Yeah.
And I think about that. Like, you know what? I knew a lot of conservatives had that same attitude about an Obama administration. Mm-hmm. Some of it had some plausibility and some of it was nuts.
Yeah.
But we get sucked into these echo chambers where we only listen to people who agree with us.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so glad, way back last decade, you reached out to me because you were a source and perspective that I needed, and that's what people need, to have a variety of views and actually be friends.
Yeah.
So that's why I appreciate what you had to say.
Well, thank you.
Well, I think we probably.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I think we probably can wrap this up, and we're over 2.5 hours here.
Congratulations, YouTube. It looks like you did an entire show without crashing.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Hey, Chance.
Let's give him a big hand.
Thank you very much. It's nice meeting you and getting to hear your perspective. But we'll have you back because definitely want to learn some more about what all is going on in the what do you call it, the underworld, not that underworld, the other underworld, the unseen world that most of us see. Yeah. I'd like to get into, I don't know, and I don't want to start a whole new thing, but the homeless situation in Tulsa. Maybe we can deal with that next time.
That'll be good.
It'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring it home. All right, everybody. Hey, thank you for watching, listening, and again, watching. And hope to see you down the road here soon. And God bless everybody. Have a great weekend. And happy belated 4th of July.